Like to call the October 28, 2021 council meet to order at 5:50 PM. Machines open for roll call. And let the record show 7 council members are present with Black and Bartholomew absent. Start on the agenda, please.
Item 1A, Plaquemines Parish Council sitting as the Board of Review. We've got oil and gas. We have 1 Connecticut Midstream Energy LLC, assessment number C626676, and it has been withdrawn. And 2 T. Parker Host United Bulk, assessment number B030000.
Item 1 under oil and gas, the Connecticut, assessment number C626676 has been withdrawn. However, we still have T. Parker Host United Bulk. Typically, Mrs. Constant, I'm sorry, wrong Belinda, thinking Gretna. Mrs. Hazel addresses the council before we begin.
Is this on? I'm Ellen Dunbar. I'm an attorney with the Pivac Law Firm, and I'm representing Assessor Hazel today at this year's 2021 Board of Review hearings. As far as the T. Parker Host United Bulk Terminals assessment, there is not a representative of the taxpayer here today. That is intentional because the parties are continuing to work together to try to amicably resolve this appeal without having to make a formal appearance either here or at the Tax Commission. In the meantime, they have asked that I do read this joint statement into the record. In regards to the presentation of evidence, it is the assessor's position that if a taxpayer has timely and properly followed the procedure for filing an appeal with the Board of Review in accordance with the Louisiana Revised Statutes and the Louisiana Tax Commission rules and regulations, and the taxpayer chooses to waive its opportunity to be heard orally at this Board of Review hearing, this waiver will not prejudice the taxpayer's right to appeal the Board of Review's decision to the Louisiana Tax Commission or to present evidence to the Louisiana Tax Commission. So with that being said, we do ask that the board uphold the assessor's value on the 2021 tax roll, which is $79,132,954 market value. Are there any questions on this particular appeal? Thank you.
Any questions from the council? Mr. Blink?
Sure. Is United Bulk appealing due to storm damage or some other reason? Market forces? What's the reason?
Assessor Hazel can address that specific question for you.
Linda Hazel, Assessor, Plaquemines Parish. T. Parker Host has acquired a part of the company, and so it's a new tax rep, it's a new company, so we're sort of having to look at the movement over of all of their assets, and it's taking some time. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Roussel?
This is the same company that bought part of Avondale?
That I don't know. I don't know. They're out of Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they were appealing their assessment there as well, but you wouldn't know.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Item 1A, real estate. 1, Suburban Gun, Rod, and Motor Club, care of Michael Marsiglia. Assignment number 1490200.
My name is Ed Bear. I was past president of Suburban Gun and Rod Club. With me, Mr. Glenn Koch, the current president of the Suburban Gun and Rod Club. And before I start, I'd first like to thank the entire council and the president for their leadership and all the support that they've done through the COVID-19 pandemic, and for your communications and recovery efforts before, during, and after Ida. We very much appreciate all the work that you've done. We've been down in the parish for over 100 years, and we do appreciate it. Secondly, I'd like to recognize Fire Chief Butcher, Chief Brock, and our Councilman, Mr. Bartholomew, for work they have done to reduce the fire rating in that area. It had been 10 for a number of years, which made our fire rating, our insurance, as high as it could be. It has now been changed to a 5, and I think they both should be complimented for all the work and efforts they do, because it affects everybody in the district. But getting on to the reason why we're here to appeal our assessment. The Suburban Gun Rod Club is operated, I've sent this information in, but I'll just read a portion of it, and I might keep it very short. And then I'll answer any questions with supporting documentation. The Suburban Club has operated as a recreational fishing and hunting club for over 100 years in its current location. Financial viability of the club is dependent on recreational fishing for saltwater species, which were abundant until Mardi Gras Pass opened in 2012. The area description: we were on the East Bank. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina decimated the lower Plaquemines Parish East Bank, followed by the BP oil spill, followed by Hurricane Isaac, followed by the creation of Mardi Gras Pass and several storms thereafter. The East Bank has not recovered. Freshwater intrusion it continues to destroy the brackish marsh surrounding areas, and the local attraction to the area for recreational fishing is virtually gone because there are virtually no saltwater species where they weren't prolific. The adverse effects of fair market value on ongoing environmental changes are undeniable. Data supporting this supposition include property values. For the last 5 years, every property on the East Bank in District 1 sold for less than it did in the previous sale. For example, in the last 3 years, a property sold in 2019 for $20,000. The prior sale for that same property was $21,000, but that was in 1987. Other examples are one property that was sold for $30,000 in 2017, $30,000 in 2017. The prior sale was in 1986 for $40,000. The point here is fair market values on the East Bank have declined significantly. On the West Bank, they're almost doubling. So it's because we're so much affected by the environmental aspects of the area, fair market values have gone down, and they don't seem to be improving, at least at this point in time. This is evident with the Pointe-a-la-Hache Public Marina. In 2019, the revenue for the Plaquemines Parish Marina was $78,968.06. In 2020, the revenue was $43,335.80. The marina has 114 slips. Occupancy is poor. Windstorm, when we get wind, we flood. Marinas are not usable. So the fair market value has significantly decreased over there, and it's not supported. I'm just going to make a quick summary of the fair market value. And some of the fair market values in the Lower Plaquemines Parish East Bank has been and continues to be negatively affected by the adverse environmental effects of Mardi Gras Pass, tropical storms, continued flooding, and increased storm risk. This is because of the East Bank location. The rest of the parish is growing and prospering. Last year, the Board of Review reduced the fair market value to a more reasonable value. We appreciate your support and knowledge of the environment and the issues related to the East Bank location. We believe the fair market value requested is reasonable based on on supporting documentation, current valuations, and we ask that you approve the below requested fair market values. They are land, $43,410. The assessor assigned value, we agree. The dry sheds, $53,946. This was assigned by the LT Louisiana Tax Commission appraiser. The clubhouse, $322,560. That was the value assigned by the assessor in 2019. The marina, we value at zero, land value only, because it's not economically feasible. With the rates that you get and based on an appraisal and estimated expenses, it's a negative cash flow. It's just not viable financially. The board approved, the Board of Review last year unanimously approved the reduced appraisal last year. And I ask that you approve the appraisal that we're requesting, which is $419,916. And I'll be glad to answer any questions regarding any of the property classes, any of the information, provide additional support. I've provided you with the documentation. You probably have that, but if not, I'll be glad to go over individually how we came up with the numbers and the documents that support that valuation. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Blink?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
How's the duck hunting over there lately?
They did real well with the teal.
Yeah.
But the fishing has not been good. We've been in there over 100 years, and this is the first time we've had a reduction in membership as a result. We have slips in the marina. There used to be a waiting list. Now there are a number of them that are empty. So our issues are dire, so to speak.
The reason why I was asking is the other day I was informed by some friends of mine who were going duck hunting. They got on top of the levee at Beschel's, and there was a police detail. Can you tell us a little bit about that police detail?
I have no idea. I'm not aware.
Okay. Well, I mean, I did some following up, and I
There's a separate club, Point Lahash Hunting Club, that some of the members are in our club.
Can you speak into the mic?
I'm sorry. There's a separate club called, I think it's a Point Lahash Hunting Club. A lot of the members are in our club, and they lease property there. And there was a lot of poaching going on. So amongst the members, they hired last year and the teal season this year just to make sure that the poaching didn't go on.
but, so
But
that,
it's a separate club.
but, you know, as the area changes, so what I'm hearing is y'all have membership that because the duck hunting is so good, y'all are having to hire a police detail to.
That's just, again, it's a separate club. It's nothing to do with the Suburban Club. The Suburban Club, we're pretty much a fishing club, and we sustained a tremendous amount of damage this last storm. I have pictures I can show you. We're going to spend well over $100,000 trying to repair what we have. The facility was built, it's wood, it was built after Hurricane Katrina in 1966. I mean, it's falling apart. It really is. It's rotten. We have termites. The roof's failing. It's
Katrina wasn't in 1966.
Betsy, I'm sorry. Betsy in 1966. That's when it was rebuilt in 66. After Katrina,
The marina was rebuilt in 1966. That's when it was rebuilt.
Right.
The basis of it. After Katrina.
We did the roof. Right.
After Katrina.
Into the
Go
mic.
ahead.
After Katrina, all the marinas, all the slips were flat roofed. After Katrina, everything was lost. The pilings were there. The roofs were gone. So what we did to recover from Katrina, what we did is we ended up cutting the pilings down. This is 50-year-old pilings, 50-year-old bulkheads that are failing now in docks. We cut the pilings down and put in half silos, which was like a Quonset hut. And from the air, they look really good. I mean, I went to the assessor after, and I've been talking with the assessor since they raised the $300,000 on the marina in 2016. I've been talking to her since then. And they said, well, they looked at it and it looked real good. So they assessed it as a, ongoing marina and everything was great. And we're having failing, roofs are failing. We're getting some rust in those Quonset huts, and pilings are failing, bulkheads failing. But we're trying to do as much maintenance as we can just to inch it along, keep it operational.
Anyway, so from where I'm sitting, what I'm seeing is, there's so many people that are coming in to go duck hunting that police are being stationed on the levee to say, hey, stay out. And the Suburban Gun and Rod Club was mentioned when I inquired about it. And that's just kind of why I'm curious that you make it sound like the fishing's not so good and stuff. And I'm just getting these other reports in, and it just seems like y'all could, transition over a little bit. Makes it more interesting too,
Well, this is a whole other corporation, and they've leased land. We know who they are. They've leased property, and that's what they're protecting. They're not saying just don't go on the property that's being leased, and that's what it is, I think.
But again, that has nothing to do with the marina and now at the Suburban Club. We're losing members every year. We probably have a half a dozen empty slips right now because we don't have members to fill them. And without them, the club's just going to fail. We just can't afford it.
How many slips you have in the marina?
40,
And a half a dozen's empty?
45 slips. Yeah.
And a half a dozen's empty?
And if we're losing every year, we're losing more.
Do our marinas have empty slips?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they do, but ours is also falling apart.
Ours too.
All right.
Right.
And y'all
The parish marina can't be empty because they said there's a waiting list for slips.
Covered slips.
There was a demand. My numbers don't work out very well, but when there's 114 slips, the revenue is $34,000, whatever it was, and there's a demand for slips. Something doesn't add up to me. That there's a waiting list if they're on the slips.
How many covered slips we have?
I'm not sure the exact number. It's the covered slips. It's not the open slips for where the shrimp boats park.
No, there's 119 covered slips. You want me to I'll show them? This is what came from the parish. I've got the report here on what they said. Right here. This is the white area is the covered slips.
It's about 60 slips at the most. About 60 slips.
Well, they told me 119. Okay. But we thank you very much, and we ask that we look for your support. We had a unanimous support last year, and we ask for your support this year. Appreciate it.
You finished?
Oh, no, one more question.
Yes, sir.
How many years consecutively have you approached the Board of Review for a reassessment?
Last year we went the first year, which when we had a very large increase in appraisal. And after that first year, they said the assessor will make an adjustment. Well, the board voted 7-0, this was in 2015, against changing the appraisal. We didn't go to the LTC, and nothing happened. There was no adjustment. Every year thereafter, we went to the assessor to review the appraisal. And I have an email from her saying that, well, we can't change it until there's a reassessment year, which was last year. So that's when we came back. My fault. I'm dumb. I don't know what the process is. I took her for a word. I didn't come back every year to the Board of Review. We just thought it was not going to be able to be done till a reassessment year. That was last year. And we came back, the council, the Board of Review voted unanimously to revalue the assessment. And we do appreciate it. We appreciate your support. We're just trying to survive and do what's right, the right numbers.
So are we going to see you next year?
Sir,
You finished, Mr.?
thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Mr. Roussel?
On the duck hunting part, we may have 20 members that are duck hunters. The rest are fishermen. And I think all y'all know how bad that's been on our side of the river. So, and we can't survive with 20 members.
Certainly.
So, sir, let me ask you these questions. Last year, you went to the tax commission, and what happened? Did they uphold the assessor?
Let me read you the results. We made our presentation. We sent all the supporting documentation into the LTC. Let me just read. This is the LTC Commission findings, reasoning, and conclusion. But before I tell you what I'll read their results were, the LTC sent an appraiser down to do an appraisal. They did the appraisal. They provided a report. I looked at the report. Okay. Not everything right, but okay. It was reasonable. Within a week or so, I got a notice that they had changed the report mysteriously, increasing it by 100% on the marina. They increased it 100% on the marina. And I called the appraiser who did it. I got in touch with her directly. And I said, she said she couldn't get in to the marina. Now, nobody, no appraiser, the assessor's appraiser, the LTC appraiser has been on site. Everything's been done from the road. That's like you trying to appraise the value in New Orleans from here. It's the same value. Nobody was on site, but I called the appraiser. I said, Ms. Labatt, I'll meet you down there anytime, anywhere, so that you have access to the marina and you can see it. She said we had floating aluminum docks and there were 20 slips, and then mysteriously it changed to 40 some odd slips, still floating aluminum docks. Things started to change. Matter of fact, at the club, they said we have sprinklers, we don't have sprinklers, but the value of the sprinklers that we had in her second appraisal went up. The value of the porch dollars went up. So things just started to change, didn't know where they came from. At the LTC hearing, Ms. Labatt, the one who did the appraisal, did not show up. She wasn't there. Somebody spoke for her. And there's been nobody on site. They come down unannounced. We have a security gate, just a fence, and be glad to have anybody come in and look at it. We want you to look and see where the value is. It's a security fence. But here's what the LTC said. And considering the testimony presented, the tax commission evaluated the credibility of the witnesses through the commission's firsthand observation of their demeanor while testifying, and the decision is based upon those observations. I mean, they just didn't like me. And I can understand, and the testimony given, and the documents and exhibits provided during the hearing. Well, we provided and submitted all the supporting documents that supported our case. But I didn't present all those because they had already been submitted. So she's much prettier than I am. And that's what the result, and so they maintained her assessment. They didn't take what the LTC appraiser said it should be. So I don't know. We just want to do what's right. We're trying to survive.
But they made a judgment on the demeanor of the person giving the presentation?
They
made a decision based on the demeanor of a person making the presentation?
Me.
You.
Just like I'm doing here. They didn't.
Did you have a bad demeanor?
It's you, Judge.
All right. So how far, let's get to the chase here. How far are you in the assessor report?
We're a long ways apart. And it's basically on the marina. And
In numbers,
$380,000
Apart?
on the marina, yes.
So she says it's worth $380,000 more than you say it's worth, because you say it's worth zero?
I'm saying it's on both the LTC appraiser, the LTC appraiser, the private appraiser that she engaged and had to do a survey. Both of those, none of them were on site. They appraised it, and they based the appraisal on, both of them said best use is what it's being used for. Both of those agreed. But what the appraiser that said it should be only be used as an income appraisal, that's what the value should be, based on income. What the appraiser that she got from the private appraiser used the valuation at Delacroix for their slips. $275 a slip is what they used as valuation, compared to what we're using now is the value of the average slip in the Point Lahash Marina. But they said they couldn't use the Point Lahash Marina because it was inferior and it floods with high tide. Well, we're 5 miles from there. When it floods, we flood. Delacroix doesn't flood, it's on the other side of the marsh. So,
You ever tried putting some cows on it?
what's that? Yeah, we need to.
Yeah, and the sad part about this, comparing to Delacroix, it's 15 miles farther to drive to Point Lahash. It's 15 miles farther to drive to Point Lahash, and we have to go by boat to Delacroix to catch fish. That's why we're losing members.
So the answer that, how far apart y'all are is 384,000?
Well,
We gotta move this along.
yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize.
And is that because it abuts private land, that you're saying it's worth zero?
No, I'm saying the marina, we're using the land value for the marina because if you use the income approach to determine as a fair market value for an investor, number one, they can't get insurance. They can't get, because they can't get insurance, you can't get financing. The point here is, if you use the outside appraiser said the estimated expenses were $60,000 a year. That's in his report. With that type of expenses, it's a negative income. And I don't know if you have the report, but there's a report in here that shows the income method, the valuation, and how we came up with those numbers. And that's why we said, because you wouldn't go out and buy a piece of investment property if your expenses would always be more than the income, would you?
But how can
That's why we valued it at zero, and that's what the recommendation of the appraiser said, that it should be based on an income approach.
okay.
The scrap value is worth way more than zero. I mean, it's got to be worth something. I mean, I'd love to have my boat under a cover.
These are corrugated roofs and 50-year-old pilings. I guess the scrap value, you can just logs and whatnot would be, I don't know what the scrap value would be. I have no idea.
Move this along. I know.
Any other questions?
Put some cows on it and you get it cheap.
Thank you. I gotta introduce this now.
Let's see what they got to say.
This particular appeal should be very straightforward. As Mr. Bear explained, this assessment was appealed for the 2020 tax year. The hearing was only 6 months ago in May of this year. And with all due respect, while the board last year did reduce the value, the assessor's value to a lower value than what was on the roll, when it became before the tax commission for a full evidentiary hearing, the tax commission did decide to reinstate Assessor Hazel's original value. There hasn't been any new evidence or information presented to the assessor in conjunction with this year's assessment to suggest that what the tax commission just decided 6 months ago should change. If there is additional evidence that wasn't considered. Everything that was just brought before you just now, the same arguments, the same evidence that was presented, the Tax Commission had before it, and still decided to reinstate Assessor Hazel's original assessment. It did consider its own appraiser's appraisal, and it rejected parts of it and accepted parts of it. It also considered an independent third-party appraisal, accepted parts of it and rejected parts of it. And when it combined those two aspects that it accepted, and it totaled what the new value would be based on what the Tax Commission, how it interpreted the evidence, the number was only $15,000 away from the assessor's original value, which is why they reinstated it. Also, it's important to point out that the Constitution only requires an assessor to reassess real estate and real estate assessments every 4 years, and we are only in year 2. The year that was appealed last year for 2020 was year 1. So we have a governing Tax Commission decision pretty much telling us what the value of the property should be. So barring some significant change or new evidence that has occurred over the last 6 months, which hasn't been given to the assessor, if there's something that they would like to present that would suggest that the Tax Commission's own number should change, Assessor Hazel is more than willing to look at that. But we haven't been given any information of that kind up to this point. Again, everything that was discussed a few minutes ago has already been discussed, and the Tax Commission had already considered it.
Thanks.
What if he goes back with a new demeanor?
I wasn't there, so I don't know anything about the demeanor. But I would point out that that language that he read from the decision is pretty much in every Tax Commission decision, and it says that their rulings and decisions are based on witness credibility, witness demeanor, and evidence and exhibits presented. So I would like to think that decision was not just based on her being pretty.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Under Real Estate, Item 2, Wilson B. Hildebrandt, assessment number 1075300.
How y'all doing? Good afternoon. Will Hildebrand, 116 Pye Street, Belchase. I'd like to say I'll accept the LTC staff appraisal and request that the value of the subject property be $120,000. This is a compromise. I originally wanted $106,000 as the value of my property. The assessor wanted $147,000. The LTC staff appraiser is the top professional for valuing property for the state of Louisiana, and his appraisal came in at $120,000, using both a market approach and a cost approach. I accept the LTC staff appraisal and request that the value of the subject property to be $120,000. I would like to ask the chairman to call for a vote to set my property value at $120,000. If the Board of Review does not agree at this time to the $120,000 value, I would like to continue with my presentation. Would you call for a vote?
Well, we have to listen to the attorney's part of it. If you want to go ahead with your, I need to hear all of it.
Okay, y'all ready for this? Okay.
Well, let me ask you this. The assessor's not accepting the LTA appraiser, whatever it is? LTA?
Staff appraisal, LTC staff appraisals value.
Can I address that?
Yeah, so we can see if we're going to have to listen to all of you or not.
This is another straightforward one. This property was also appealed 2020. It was also recently heard in May. And yes, there was an LTC appraiser who came in at $120,000. There was also an independent third-party appraiser. This is what they typically do if the two parties tend to be far apart. Not only does the LTC hire its own staff appraiser, but the assessor will hire an independent third-party appraiser from outside the assessor's office, so they have multiple appraisals to look at. And that independent third-party appraiser came in at $180,000. So the Tax Commission, after having, again, a full evidentiary hearing and considering all of the evidence and the witness testimony, rejected its own staff appraiser's appraisal of $120,000 and reinstated the assessor's original value again. So again, the assessor put the same value that the tax commission had already approved 6 months ago back on the 2021 tax roll, and no new evidence or information has been presented by Mr. Hildebrand other than the LTC staff appraisal that the tax commission had already rejected in conjunction with the 2020 hearing.
Thank you. Does any other council member have a?
Okay, I have plenty of information now. Last year I didn't. All the cards weren't on the table. Didn't have the LTC staff appraisals value. That was one reason I didn't come before you last year when I filed the appeal, because I was fully prepared to accept whatever the LTC staff appraisal value for my property was. And it turned out to be 120. The assessor wanted 147. I wanted 106. So it's a compromise. Life is all about compromise. Okay. So a little property history. The subject property was built for Louisiana Department of Transportation to relocate Mr. and Mrs. Leonard, whose existing house was in the way of the approach for the new Belle Chase Bridge in 1965. How ironic. Same thing's happening today. Perhaps the property qualifies as tax exempt, and I do not owe any taxes because of the involvement of DOTD's relocation policy. Perhaps the legal department can check into this further. I bought this property at a sheriff's auction in '96 for $48,000, which equals to $50 a square foot. The assessor now values my property at $150 a square foot, 3 times what I bought it for 25 years ago. With no improvements such as additions or remodels, the property still has the original kitchen appliances and bath fixtures. Pictures of the interior of the property will forward to the assessor's office for consideration to lower my assessment value. This is a continuation from last year's appeal process. 2020 was a reassessment year, and my property taxes went up 50%. In past reassessment years, 10 to 15% increase were the norm. Again, I asked the assessors to work with me to settle these large increases. I believe the assessor has made a mistake on the value of my property. The assessor has made mistakes in the past, and I will submit documentation to verify that in a minute. The LTC appraiser did 2 different appraisals approaches to reach its final value on the subject property, my house. A market approach and a cost approach. The assessor's office hired an independent appraiser that only used a market approach. Perhaps if the assessor's appraiser would have also done a cost approach, the final appraisal value may have come in lower. The assessor's office hired an independent appraiser only after LTC appraiser's value on the subject property was disclosed on March 4th, 2021, which came in $27,000 lower than the assessor's value. Why call in an independent appraiser when 99% of the time, in cases like this, when the LTC staff appraiser's value falls between what the assessor's value on the high end and what the taxpayer is asking on the low end, the LTC will overwhelmingly use the value supplied by their staff appraiser to set the final value. See documentation. Have documentation verifying it. The LTC staff appraisal is the key to open the lock to the assessment process. The LTC staff appraisers value property throughout Louisiana, and it is the ultimate value that is assigned to 95% of all cases reviewed in the weeks prior to my hearing on May 12, 2021, and on the cases I reviewed on weeks after my hearing. Also have documentation proving this. If we take a look at the LTC appraisal report, you will see how the spreadsheet flows. It is laid out in a manner that is easy to understand, no mistakes, and is laid out in a precise, professional manner. All comps fall within 50-plus year old category, dates of sales all in 2018, and square footage close to the subject property. If you look, now if you have the documentation, I supplied it, but if you look at gross living area, now I'm talking about the, see if I can find it here. This appraisal right here. Y'all have that information? Appraisal, LTC appraisal.
Yeah, if you sent it.
Okay. Just bear with me a minute here. Get it all in line. Okay. If you look at the gross living area, which is about halfway down the left-hand side, you will see a figure that is calculated using a division of 2 to come up with the deduction or addition to the dollar column. All three comps cited here use the deduction because the additional square footage as compared to the subject property. If we take a look at the independent retrospective report supplied by the assessor's office, her independent appraisal report, you will see a similar spreadsheet, but it is very difficult to decipher and it is riddled with many mistakes. For example, again, this is the retrospective appraisal report from the independent appraisal that the assessor hired. For example, if you look at the gross living area on this report, you will see that the independent appraiser used a division of 5 instead of 2 to come up with deduction or addition to the dollar column, which ultimately adds more value to the property, therefore strengthening the assessor's case. It's all documented right here. We could go through all the figures, but it gets complicated. As the report, also in the report, the retrospective appraisal report, independent appraiser from the assessor's office, also in the report has a room count of 5 total, 3 bedrooms and 1.1 baths. This is wrong. The subject property only has 4 total rooms, 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. And property is only 980 square foot. That's pretty important. So let me repeat it. 5 total, 3 bedrooms, 1.1 baths. Actual is 4 total, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. This will also strengthen the assessor's case by artificially adding more value to the subject property. Now, mistake number 3 has the age of the subject property. Again, we talk about the retrospective report, independent appraisal. Mistake number 3 has the age of the subject property at 49 years when the property is 55 years old. Also, comp number 2, again, in the same report, which falls out, also comp number 2 has an age of 42 years, which falls out of the acceptable age range. Also, the 3 comps cited have square footage of 30 to 60% larger than the subject property, which puts them further out of range as a comparable. If you look on the Audubon appraisal report documentation, and this is just my handwritten notes here, If you look at the Audubon appraisal report documentation supplied in the packet, you will see a tally of Comp 1 with corrections applied. The final adjusted sale price of the comparables for Comp 1 is $152,662, which equals $97 a square foot, after all said and done and corrected. All other comps in the report will have similar lower square footage value. Now, given all the errors in the assessor's independent report, the report should be disregarded. Again, this is why the LTC staff appraisal report is so valuable as the key to opening the lock to the assessment process. The assessor has argued that the LCC staff appraisal Comp 1 is not accurate because the property was partially gutted. If you look at Comp 1 on the LTC summary, you will see under condition that it is listed as poor, with an addition of $22,000 to compensate for which adds value back into the sale of the property. This is an accurate accounting of the property to make it whole and livable. So the two reasons that the LTC accepted at the May 12th hearing that ultimately favored the assessor's value has been shown in documentation in this presentation to be wrong. First one being, the independent appraisal report is flawed with many mistakes and should be ignored. Second one is, the LTC staff appraiser's report is extremely accurate and should be used to set the value of the subject property at $120,000. The previous assessor, Bobby Gravelet, was known to work with taxpayers when assessing properties in Plaquemines. For example, see documentation under Bobby Gravelet, which in a letter states that the assessor's office will honor the appraised conclusions of the Louisiana Tax Commission staff appraiser. Change orders will be submitted to reflect the Louisiana Commission value conclusions, and refund checks were issued to reflect the LCC staff appraiser's decision of a lower value. So, in conclusion, I accept the LTC staff appraisal, request that the value of the subject property be $120,000. In the presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Mr. Blink?
Yeah, I just did some searching for a home, and there's not many $120,000 houses in Belle Chase. Or
That's not my
$160,000 house
value.
in Belle
That's what the
Chase.
staff appraisal, the Louisiana staff appraisal came up. He's a professional.
Place people want to be, right?
You probably want to go over his report, and you can see it's very accurate.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you, Mr. Hildebrand.
Thank you.
Those are the only ones that we have. Just let me know how y'all want to vote in globo or take each one separately.
Yeah, take each
Just-
one separate, I guess.
Okay, and just a reminder, all the resolutions are currently written to uphold the assessor's values and assessment, and, yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
okay. Read one again, under the oil.
Before we vote, can we clarify some things? So on the resolution for the Suburban Club, is it that the assessor's value is $124,533? Is that correct?
Yes,
And then Mr.
Hildebrand.
Hildebrand is $147.74. Is that correct? And is that the assessor's
What-
numbers or their numbers? I'm assuming it's assessor's numbers?
14,774. Mr. Hildebrand.
Okay, thank you.
so read T. Rowe Price first. I'm going to go back to that. We need to vote on
T. Parker Host United Bulk, assessment number B030000.
Do we have to vote on that one, or?
yes. Resolution. Preamble. Read the preamble.
A resolution by the Plaquemines Parish Council sitting as the Board of Review, wherein the assessment as established by the Plaquemines Parish Assessor is hereby upheld and approved concerning T. Parker Host United Bulk, request for review of assessment listed below and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Do I have an offer?
Offer.
Mr. Blink offers, there a second? I'll second. Any questions from the council? Machines are open.
Councilmember LaFrance and Newberry.
And it passes 7-0.
Real Estate 1, Suburban Gun, Rod, and Motor Club, care of Michael Marsilia, assessment number 1490200. A resolution by the Plaquemines Parish Council sitting as the Board of Review, wherein the assessment as established by the Plaquemines Parish Assessor is hereby upheld and approved concerning Suburban Gun, Rod, and Motor Club, a request for review of the assessment listed below and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Do I have an offer?
Offer.
Offer by Mr. Blink, is there a second? I'll second. Any questions from the council? Machines are open. And it fails 4-3.
Real Estate 2, Wilson B. Hildebrand, assessment number 1075300. A resolution by the Plaquemines Parish Council sitting as the Board of Review, wherein the assessment is as established by the Plaquemines Parish Assessor is hereby upheld and approved concerning Wilson B. Hildebrand, request for review of assessment listed below and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Do I have an offer?
Offer.
Offer by Mr. Blink, is there a second? I'll second. Any questions from the council? Machines open. And it fails 4-3. I'd like to convey as the Board of Review at 6:43.
Item 2, executive session, we have none. Item 3, proclamations, we have none. Item 4, status report by the parish president.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. We remain in recovery mode from Ida, and we face challenges every day. And like I said, I'd like to thank my staff who continuously works hard every day, and the hardworking workers of our parish that continue to work, and to get our parish back up to where it was. And I want to thank my state and local partners also who's helped us out. A little update on debris. Plaquemines Parish has picked up almost 313,000 cubic yards of debris, and DOTD has picked up about 83,000 cubic yards. So roughly almost 400,000 yards of cubic debris has been picked up through our parish. We've completed our first sweep, as we call our first sweep, throughout the entire parish, and we're working on our second pass. And again, we ask our residents if they're putting out debris separated from vegetative to C&D to white goods. It helps expedite the process. I'm giving you a little update on FEMA and SBA. We just got word that they have extended the deadline to November 29th on FEMA and in SBA. So in FEMA, They have visited almost 4,500 homes in Plaquemines Parish. They have registered close to almost 8,000 residents. They have awarded amount of $11.5 million to Plaquemines Parish. So there are 36 Plaquemines Parish residents participating in the Transitional Shelter Assistance Program. It's called Hotels and Apartments. SBA has awarded $8.7 million to Plaquemines Parish residents with roughly about 600 applicants. It's also, SBA is good for homeowners, renters, and business. And both of these organizations are located in the Multipurpose Center, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and also the Port Sulphur YMCA, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So we encourage our residents to reach out to these locations if they have any problems or need assistance with these, with FEMA or SBA. Our Blue Roof program, we had about 415 applicants, and out of that, 392 were installed. So that's about a 94% rate in Plaquemines Parish. FEMA's direct housing program, as of 10/27/21, FEMA advised it says 7,700 applicants in the 10 parishes approved for direct housing, and it has been identified for pre-placement interviews, what's called PPI. 4,500 PPIs have been completed and 3,000 have been approved by direct housing. Of those 3,000, FEMA has installed 5 trailers. Okay, so this is something we want our residents to know. It's a process that they have to go through direct houses, but this is what FEMA's given us. FEMA has currently identified 91 households in Plaquemines Parish for pre-placement interviews. So those folks are getting ready to get into that process. Currently, FEMA is not approving travel trailers in special flood hazard areas, flood zone AE. FEMA will work with the homeowners directly in this entire process. We're talking about the Hurricane Ida Shelter Program. On 10/18/21, the state has approved the following heavily impacted areas of Plaquemines Parish. That's Alliance from Point LaHash for the state Ida Shelter Program. Initially, we wasn't considered in this program, and now we are. And the only parts that are considered in this program is between Alliance and West Point LaHash. All other areas in Plaquemines Parish will fall under FEMA Direct Housing Program. So, that, like I said, that's the only part that's in the state program is from Alliance to West Point LaHash. The administration and Councilman LaFrance met with the state contractors about the program. Councilman LaFrance was given forms for residents in these impacted areas to fill out if needed, a shelter or travel trailer. As of 10/27, the state contractor has given information of 60 households in this area. The contractor will then contact the homeowner to complete the entire process, which includes inspections, permits, to haul, and install. This process could take up to several weeks. To date, no travel trailers have been installed in Plaquemines Parish.
Mr. President,
Yes?
the day we receive our first travel trailer in West Point LaHash.
We did?
Yes.
All right. Hallelujah. Thank you. Thanks for that update, Mr. LaFrance. I'll give you a quick update on COVID. We got total, since in the inception of COVID, 3,800 COVID cases. We have 40 deaths, but our positive rate has actually come down since 10/22. We're at now 1.4. So our positivity rate for the parish is at 1.4. And as you know, 10/27, the Governor Edwards lifted the statewide mask mandate for certain areas. So our parish has lifted the mandate as we followed them. Our total residents that have been vaccinated is 49.75, so almost 50% of our residents have been vaccinated, and we still continue to push that out to get as many residents vaccinated. And we encourage those who are vaccinated and get the booster, who haven't gotten the booster, please get that now. We have that at our health center, and we had it at the Senior Olympics and vaccinated a lot of our senior citizens.
Kirk, was that population, is that 18 and up, or is that parish as a whole?
I don't have that breakdown, Trudy, but I could get that. I just have it as a total. two other things before we close out. We want to send out our wishes to Councilman Black, who had surgery yesterday. He's out. We wish him a speedy recovery. And tomorrow, Plaquemines Parish will what we call is paint Plaquemines pink. Okay, we encourage everyone to wear pink in honor of those who suffered and are still suffering through breast cancer. This is a way of honoring those individuals who went through this terrible disease. And we would like and encourage all of our workers, all of our staff to paint Plaquemines pink. So again, we hope that we can be successful with that. I have two introductions tonight. Tonight I'm going to start off with, I'm going to introduce our new PIO, Sissy Strickland. I'm going to get Sissy to come to the mic, say a few words about her. If you have any questions, please address it to Sissy. So, Sissy?
Thank you for the opportunity allowing me to introduce myself this evening. I'm thrilled to serve as Plaquemines Parish Government's Public Information Officer. I hit the ground running about a month ago in the midst of Ida recovery and our current millage campaign. I come to the job with a bachelor's degree in communications from Louisiana State University. I have experience in government relations working in Baton Rouge under the Lieutenant Governor and serving Scott Angel during his gubernatorial race back in 2016. I also have a strong foundation in nonprofit work. I'm born and raised in Plaquemines Parish, as most of you know. It's a pleasure to serve my community. Should you have any questions or need any information sent out, please give me a call, and I look forward to learning how I can best support all of you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sissy. The next introduction, I'd like to introduce Zach Smith. Zach is now our CBO, our Chief Building Officer. As you know, we had that application out for the longest time, and we wasn't really successful, so we contracted Zach. Zach is not only a CBO, but he's a floodplain manager, and he's going to come up. But, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respectfully move to 7, I think it's M, so Zach can give a presentation. Yes, 7M with that, so he can give a presentation and we can talk about some of it. But Zach, you want to come on up?
Can we get a question? Mr. Blink's in the queue to ask you.
Okay.
It was answered.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Can we
Look,
move
yeah, come on, he can come over here.
7M?
Yeah, can we move to 7N, sir?
Item 11M, presentation by the permit contractor in regards to elevation and permits. Councilmember Konovich.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my presentation. I don't know if anyone has, before Zach would get sets up, does anyone have a question from my presentation or?
I have one.
Okay.
The cleanup crews that's picking up the tree debris and all. I see they got a couple people standing around watching them. Could we get a rake in their hand and they could rake up some extra limbs and all?
Well, some of the monitoring companies, so I mean, look, if it's getting to be a nuisance or they're not doing a good job, let us know. They're paid by the cubic yard, I've been told, so.
They could get a rake and they could get a couple more yards.
Well, we'll look at that. All right. Anyone else? All right, Mrs. Zach, you ready?
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak today. Thank you, President Lapine, for the request here. And before I introduce myself, I wanted to say thank you to Mike Metcalf for 14 years of great service, and I wish him well in his retirement, his much-earned retirement. My name is Zachary Smith. I am currently serving as the CBO, the Certified Building Official, and the Certified Floodplain Manager for Plaquemines Parish. I am very excited to be here with this role, especially for the public outreach that comes with this job. I know that the post-Ida world is is a little bit rougher than anybody would like, but I hope that we can assist all the public with timely answers to their questions so that they can make the best decisions, and we can give them the most outreach and support so that they can get on with their lives and build a better, in a more resilient way. With that said, kind of jumping into it, a general summary of what we want to talk about today is compliance with some FEMA regulations that are very important for the public to understand. It's very important for the public to understand the resources out there, and it is extremely important for the long-term growth and resiliency of any area to make sure that structures are rehabilitated or built new, replaced in an appropriate way that's going to harden them so that they're not as impacted as some of the areas, unfortunately, were impacted on the 16th anniversary of Katrina with Ida. Secondly, the permits office. It's a great group of people that I've inherited in my short time now with PPG. We are available all the time. We'll have contact information up at the end of this presentation, but you can call, you can visit the Port Sulphur office, you can come here to Belle Chase, you can email us. We are very quick to get back with you, and we'll go over some of those best links. And then the third kind of theme to this is going to be, there's a lot of big issues out there. There's a lot of things that are going to be very daunting. They're going to be very pricey. They're going to be expensive. But as we continue to learn, when we kick the can down the road, it comes back, and it's a lot more expensive later. So with that said, for anyone doing any work, two major points. One, you should always use licensed and insured contractors. We can go down rabbit holes of different rules and regulations, but you should always use licensed and insured contractors. Remember that paperwork. If anybody that's dealing with an insurance claim right now, they'll come out, they'll do an adjustment, and before they start sending you checks, they're looking through all the fine print, they're looking through all their policy information, and a lack of permitting, a lack of evidence that something was done correctly starts to void or limit some of those payouts. So please remember that. Plaquemines Parish must enforce the regulations here as part of NFIP, which is essentially for those paying attention.
Zach,
Yes.
I'm sorry to stop you, but for folks at home that don't know what NFIP is, can you please spell that out?
Yes, sir. I was just about to. The NFIP is essentially the government underwriting of flood insurance nationwide. Flood insurance is a very intricate process, and it's very difficult for private insurers to afford. So essentially, the federal government backs all flood insurance, and I shouldn't say all, but essentially all flood insurance in the country. And in order to receive and be eligible as a community for your citizens to buy flood insurance, the local municipality must follow certain rules spelled out by FEMA. There's going to be manuals and things we'll have links to, but all of these are essentially in the Code of Federal, the CFR from the Fed. They are official. Through this presentation, we'll have a couple of maps up. I know on these screens here, they're not going to be the most visible, but they're there because we're going to post this onto the permits website so that people from anywhere will be able to access it and kind of see. Essentially, a special flood hazard area is everything that's going to be an A or a V. That's going to be a good chunk of Plaquemines Parish. There's obviously what people now know as X, which is generally the Belle Chase or, behind walls, behind new certified levees. Generally, anything that's development, if you think about having to pay somebody or to do it in any sort of trip to Home Depot, any sort of construction activity, essentially that's going to be something that's going to be regulated by permitting, and it's going to be something that could potentially have some sort of analysis need to be done. Anything related to flood damage, and we'll get into this, anything related to flood damage needs an inspection and a verification of your substantial damage. It is the requirement of FEMA. It is something that Plaquemines Parish government must have performed before we issue permits in order to be compliant with the federal guidelines. For the firms, I think something that's been a topic is the maps that came through in January of 2021, earlier this year. Those maps are now what's coming into play as we have a catastrophic event, especially in some neighborhoods. I've been able to tour the majority of Plaquemines Parish and see firsthand some of the devastation. And the maps that were adopted in January are what is the law of the land. Jumping kind of into it, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but we know that there is a large stock of structures in Plaquemines Parish, specifically in the residential side, that are modular houses, manufactured housing, or mobile homes. I use those. They sometimes get used interchangeably. The word trailer as well. We're going to consider them all the same thing for here. These are things that do not have engines in them. They're not RVs. They cannot be turned on and driven off the site. These are things that are, placed on a site for a permanent type nature. If it's been touched by floodwater, if it's been destroyed by floodwater, it cannot be replaced as is. We'll go over some specifics in a little bit, but I wanted to get that out, knowing that some people may pay attention at the beginning of the presentation and then need to see it. It's extremely important that people understand the maps that exist are the law. And if you have in order for us to be compliant with FEMA regulations, various areas will have some significant elevations required. There's the word grandfathering that gets thrown around for the sake of this discussion. If you replace it, it's as if it was never there. It's important to know that when your home has been impacted by flood water and is substantially damaged, if the elevation requirement is to go up another 5 feet or 10 feet, that is where it would have to go. Some basics on BFE and whatnot in the special flood hazard areas. Essentially, yes, sir.
Can you please spell out the acronyms for folks at home? So NFIP is National Flood Insurance Program, BFE, Base Flood Elevation.
Base flood
A lot of
elevation.
people that aren't
Yes,
very
yes.
well versed. Thank you, Zach.
Okay. Base flood elevation is essentially an engineering analysis that's done to try and determine where flood waters will reach in a flood event. So they call that the base flood. Where are they expected to be? And we've become more familiar in the post-Katrina world with things like a 100-year event or a 500-year event. A 500-year event is something that's going to be what's now known as the X. It's that 0.2%, where a 1% is going to be anything that's a 100-year flood. The bottom of the slide is kind of the most important. People throw out 1% a lot, and they think, well, 1% is pretty low. In the life of your mortgage, in the life of the time you generally are going to be in that house, you have a 25% chance of actually being flooded. It's in a slide later on, but there's 20% of all floods actually happen in non-special flood areas. And if I think everybody here has driven down the highway, we've seen what happens, and it's not the first time. Just some general stats. Again, 26% chance that your house is going to be damaged by a flood in your 30-year mortgage. You have a much smaller chance of your house burning than you do of a flood. We're going to go into some flood maps, walk you through some stuff. Again, a lot of Plaquemines Parish is in an A zone or a V zone. These are considered those higher risk areas. They're generally going to be the areas that are outside of some sort of certified levee protection, and there are areas that we've seen in the last 60 days. We've seen tidal action wipe buildings off their foundations. We've seen significant damage to some of these properties because the water is a very powerful force. Here's that slide for base flood elevations with the BFE. Essentially on the map you see there, and we'll go through some maps in a little bit, but the map will show, and we'll have links in this presentation. The maps will show you where you are, what flood zone you're in, and then there will be what's circled there, that elevation. That's the elevation that's going to be required. That's that base flood level. if in the maps I pulled of areas around Plaquemines Parish, we've also included some of the general ground elevations, because you take the ground elevation, you compare it to the elevation requirement, and that generally will be an idea of about how many feet above grade you'd have to go. I will say this again multiple times. Any maps you see me present are generalizations. I've picked random points in neighborhoods and areas throughout Plaquemines Parish. It's extremely important that, if you have any particular questions about your property, and my information will be the last slide, that you just reach out to us. We'll be happy to do all the digging for you so that we can assist you with any questions. Again, in A, AE, AO, and VE zones, these are those high-risk flood zones. This is a good chunk, when we go through these maps of Plaquemines, this is a good chunk of the parish. There's that visualization of base flood for you, for these special flood hazard areas. Essentially, if you see the house that's still in a flood hazard area, but it's been mitigated to be above, that's one of the many mitigation ways that you can properly protect your property from the next event.
To be clear, fill isn't allowed anymore in this language, correct?
Fill is not advised. Currently, the parish does not have a regulation prohibiting it, but it is definitely not advised, and it's better flood policy not to have fill, because fill just displaces water. Now, fill in a V zone, not permitted, because it's going to wash out. But in an A and obviously in an X, there's no requirement, and the parish currently doesn't have a freeboard requirement, which would be additional above the BFE. But the fill is not advised, but it is still permissible at the current time. What the parish has been working on after the storm is steps to make sure that the parish is being compliant with FEMA regulations. It's extremely important that not just for the NFIP participation, which means flood insurance for all of our citizens, but it's important because Plaquemines Parish would close the door on funding opportunities from the federal government if it doesn't participate, if it doesn't carry out, for instance, contribute to carry out substantial damage assessments. It's something that's required by participation with the NFIP. It's something that the parish is working on right now to carry out and make sure that it's doing its part so that the citizens have accurate numbers for their properties. The substantial damage, the best thing to say is it's essentially an in the field, in-person review of a property to take a look at if it received flooding, how much flooding did it receive, if it had any sort of other damage, so that we can get a overall assessment of this property. The reason why this is important is because the definition of substantial damage is essentially work that's going to be needed to fix a property that's going to be over 50%. There are some triggers in the law that are based on how much damage you receive. If your house was completely inundated with water, if you have a 10-foot ceiling and you had 16 feet of water over your house, there's no math that's going to allow you to say you weren't substantially damaged. When there's properties that are questionable or on the mark, there are ways that we will evaluate in the permits office, and we have the links to the handbook and whatnot, but we will take your fair market value of labor and materials and we will compare that to your assessed value or an appraised value to determine if you're close. If you're close or you're right above, we'll be able to work individually with property owners to try and get the best possible number for them that's most accurate. And that's going to be based on the actual amount of cost related to fix a property. Sometimes a property might have received 3 feet of water, but because of the unique nature of it had tile floors that don't need to be replaced. They were able to gut the building early up to the 4 feet and other kind of things that are hardened in there. That particular property might be actually less expensive to fix. Those are the types of questions and back and forth that the permit office is going to be working with citizens to go over so that we can get the best number for them so that it's not an automatic trigger for everybody. Again, the SD determinations, that substantial damage, are because of our participation in the NFIP. Again, National Flood Insurance Program. Without the participation in the NFIP, no one in Plaquemines Parish would be allowed to have federally underwritten policies, which means anybody with a mortgage backed by the federal government that would be called in, and they'd have to pay those immediately. We kind of went through this with some of the questions. Again, it's federal rules that we have agreed to abide by as our participation in the flood insurance program. We are working as the parish with our state and federal partners to work on mitigation grant programs. Again, we're doing public outreach, making sure that we present at this meeting, putting together these things, putting information on the website so that there are more and more resources in the community's hands, and that they know that we're available to walk them through what can be a very, very hard process, especially if their lives have been very severely impacted. We want to make it as easy as possible to get them clear and quick answers. Related to permits, again, if you think it needs a permit, it probably does. It's better to ask and email us. We're exceptionally quick about getting emails back to the public. I would say that we're top notch with that. The staff is fantastic in both the Port Sulphur office and in the Belle Chase office. Remember that insurance. I know everybody can talk about the federal government. They can talk about well, why do we have to do this? Insurance, insurance, insurance. If we were to take a show of hands in this room right now, I'm sure everybody's had a rough time in the past, or they're currently having a rough time with their insurance. Okay? It's extremely important that you protect yourself by getting the proper records in place now, so that when people ask you for it at the next event, you have that ready to go. This link's going to be up there. We have information about what's needed for permitting. A big thing that's going to be needed for all substantial damage reviews is kind of a detailed cost breakdown. It's extremely important as part of the audit that FEMA will eventually do of the permit process. And they're going to make sure that we've actually calculated the numbers for construction values. And then the substantial damage evaluation we would do for you via in the field and with some paperwork in the office. A link to that is to the entire permits website is right there. Really, what happens if we don't do it right? You know, there's a lot of people. There's easier answers. You know, let's push it off. Let's push it off. I'm going to show a slide in a second about something that's happening this year related to the 2016 floods with our cousin parishes in the Livingston, Baton Rouge area, and their desire to kind of not enforce rules at the time has come back and really kicked them really hard. Federal guidelines with the federal flood rules is the law. It's something that we have agreed to do. It's something that we have to do. It's for the betterment of the community. I ripped this right out of the newspaper here, and you can see it's dated July 15th, 2021. This is in the last 6 months. This says Baton Rouge. It's also applying to Livingston Parish as well. After the fact, 5 years after people have invested without complying, without elevating, folks are getting letters in the mail to keep all of Baton Rouge from losing its flood insurance for every policyholder to individuals that did not take the necessary steps. And because of that, people are having to elevate their properties now. They're having to demolish properties, or they're having to move out of those properties because they can't afford. It's important that we do the right thing. Wanted to throw a couple of numbers out there. We've been kind of polling some of the public. We've been calling to different elevation contractors and whatnot. This is kind of a best kind of on the higher of the average to just put some numbers out for some people, especially related to that elevation of the structure. And that elevation of the structure's right now market rate for something that's about 1,500 square feet, kind of like a single wide condition for new foundation, elevation, surveying, engineering, etc. I wanted to throw that out there in case people were wondering about how much it might cost. I will never leave a public meeting without advising everybody to look into flood insurance if you don't have it. It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. To just kind of scroll through some of these maps for Plaquemines Parish, just about everybody has changed in some way. Even if you were a B, you might now be an X. It's a very similar zone. We've had calls saying, "Can you please put me back in a B?" as in Bravo, and we say, we're looking into certain things in case there were any errors. But generally speaking, we haven't been able to find any discrepancies yet. Again, the maps will go through. Who produced the map. The LSU Ag Center has a fantastic website. You can just Google LSU Ag Center floods, and you'll be able to find this information. You can search any address. You can put in GPS locations. You can scroll through the entire parish and just click on random places, and you'll be able to see the important parts for people paying attention to this are going to be the flood zone and the elevation requirement, and then the approximate ground elevation of their areas. I know it is late, but I'll just give it a couple seconds on each slide so that people, if they're watching, can see that. Again, Belle Chase in Cedar Grove, around the ferry in Belle Chase. You can see that Belle Chase is an X with no BFE requirement, ground elevation up there. I think that's the parks of Plaquemines. And then once you get out the wall, I know Boothville's a ways out the wall, but you'll have AEs. Not everything's a V, but you're starting to see base flood elevations with some sticker shock. It is a sticker shock. These are the numbers that exist. Braithwaite, I do believe, is the Braithwaite Park in the Braithwaite area is the highest elevation that we have. And these are in alphabetical order, not in following your districts. I apologize. Kind of wrapping up here for you. The next couple slides are all going to be links. So when you get this on the parish website, on the permits portal, you can click these links straight out of the document, and it'll be able to take you to these websites. These are ways in which to look at your flood maps. These are links to the manuals that essentially are the federal guidelines and regulations related to manufacturing housing, substantial damage. There's 1-800 numbers for FEMA. It'll be a slide in a second, but we will have a digitally embedded FEMA representative available to assist us, assist customers. That's something that we reached out to, and the administration got a hold of really quickly. If anybody ever sees that the Louisiana Department of Transportation has a lot of stuff about FEMA on it, it's because at the state level, the Department of Transportation and Development, it's that D that comes in, is essentially the FEMA liaison for the state. So if you're ever wondering who the state, the GOSEP is that more of emergency management, whereas LDOT is is essentially the pre-planning FEMA side with the permitting offices. Again, we're going to have FEMA embedded assistance for the public. If you have any desire to see any of our permits, sample applications, our checklists, we'll have them here. And I'll keep this up for the remainder of the time while I take any questions if you have them for those at home to have our information. Be happy to help anybody. We know that it's a rough time, and we look forward to doing it in the most professional and courteous way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a lot of questions, but to save time, can we get you and whoever else to come to Port South and Buras and have a town hall meeting?
Absolutely.
And, you know, because myself and a lot of constituents down there have questions, just like one, you know, you said that if your house was flooded, you got to go up with it. What if my house was wind damaged? Can I get a replacement trailer?
We really need to do a damage assessment on the property. Has it been, you know, there's hypotheticals. Was it wind damage where it was taken and thrown 10 feet? Did it have a little bit of roof damage, some broken windows, and some wind-driven rain? If those substantial damage assessments, where it wasn't flood-related, are less than 50%, you're generally going to be able to renovate in place. But if any sort of flood damage happens, and it's going to trigger substantial, especially on a manufactured house, then it's almost always going to have to be elevated. So the resting rule would be you need to prepare to elevate, but that's why we want to be available with, in a very efficient way for somebody to say, this is my property, this is how much it is, can you come take a look at it? So we can get right to the bottom of that, because everybody's property is the hardest part with building permits anywhere, is everybody's house had a little bit different damage. Everybody's house is in a slightly different elevation. Everybody's house, no two houses are the same. The gentleman with the assessment, there's houses, they're generally assessed about the same depending on the neighborhood, but some houses are bigger, some houses are going to be more expensive. So the 50% rule for substantial damage is going to be a little bit different. It's why we want to just make sure that we're as available as possible so that we can help people answer the specific questions, because it gets very difficult to give general across the board answers that people will take. But the resting answer, the safest answer is to say you need to prepare to elevate if it's been substantial.
And suppose I got money and I want to go buy a trailer and I'll sign a piece of paper relieving FEMA of any future. Can I get a permit to put it?
Unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to. So as part of that participation with the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, the parish is required by law to enforce certain regulations. So the parish to fail to do that would mean, even though you may not intend to have flood insurance, it would put the policies of everyone else in the parish at risk. And it's one of the things that's happened with that slide I showed you in Baton Rouge and Livingston. The failure of the government to enforce rules essentially had the federal government come in and say, well, we're going to take it all away. And then the government had to jump in 5 years later after people have reinvested in their properties, not at the right heights, to say you're going to have to after half a decade mitigate that property. It's one of the things it's going to have. If a house has to be mitigated, it has to be mitigated. It can be very difficult. It's going to cost money, but to me, it'd be better to know everything that you might need to know now before you spend money to fix a property. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that every citizen is armed with the best information for their property so that they can properly plan for what the next steps are.
And if I had a trailer and I was wanting to rent somebody's property, I still got to go up.
If you have a trailer and you're renting somebody else's property, it's without knowing the rest of that kind of context, the answer would be yeah.
Well, I have a trailer and I don't have property in Buras, say, and somebody wants me to rent me a piece of property. Can I get a permit to put it on the ground?
No. Mr. Buras here just kind of reminded me, for folks that have insurance, there are pools of money. They're going to be referred to as ICC, increased cost of compliance funds, that are going to be that are little bonus pockets of up to $30,000. You need to check. I'd advise everybody to check with their insurance providers to see about that money, which can definitely it's specifically there to help people mitigate their properties.
And then my trailer, say it got destroyed, I want to go buy a camper trailer and put it on my property.
When you say a camper trailer, I'm assuming something more recreational in appearance?
Yep.
Again, the NFIP generally doesn't regulate movable properties like that, that are permanently affixed to wheels and things. I would tell you the zoning rules, I'm not an expert on the zoning in Plaquemines Parish yet, but generally permanent living in a non-suitable structure is usually going to get into some other issues. But we would love to know exactly where, exactly what, and we could give you a specific answer on that.
It won't be permanent. When I die, y'all could do what y'all want with it. But it's not permanent. And if my trailer house had wheels on it, I could pull it with my truck, so does that make it a mobile?
Generally speaking, if what I think you're saying is there, I'm imagining a trailer more like a manufactured house that may have arrived to the site with wheels.
It still has wheels on
Down the interstate. I would say that's, if it's been installed correctly, there's a lot of work. There's permanent connections and things like that. It is not something that an average person would be able to hook up. And these are the things that get left behind in a storm, and then they get wiped off their foundations and thrown into other properties. We unfortunately saw it in Ironton, where properties went and caused damage to their neighbors. These are, it's a very tough conversation, but it's a conversation that, if done right, will protect people from having an IDA level event to their homes the next time that Plaquemines Parish gets an IDA level event. There's some areas in Myrtle Grove Estates, and we can talk about the unpermitted improvements below the flood elevation, but the actual living areas were essentially unscathed minus wind issues. Now, and that's an area that obviously has been built up that way, and it's a much more direct relationship to water. But we have to realize that with the new maps, and to folks that may challenge the new maps got some of the V zones that used to be Bs or As, it got them pretty correct, where we actually saw that wave action pushing into buildings. It's something that, imagine if Myrtle Grove Estates had not been where they are, there would have been catastrophic damage in that neighborhood. Properly mitigating against the risk saves you money in the long run, because you can go through, hose out your downstairs, clean up the debris, and you're back to living as soon as you get your power. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for some neighborhoods because of how low they were.
And overall, what is Belchase rated?
Belchase, as a whole, as I understand it, is generally going to be an X zone.
X and
X.
Buras is a V zone, right?
Buras was an AE of, again, the specific point that I picked in Buras for the sake of the map, shows an AE with an elevation of 11, the average ground elevation of -2, so that's about 13 feet above grade.
FEMA took into effect, Belchase got a rating because they got a new flood wall around it.
It's part of that process where the certifications of walls, the certifications from the feds, they build that protection into their analysis.
Because the levees in Buras around my house was already tested by Katrina, where that cement wall they got was never tested by Katrina. And if I'm going to pick my house up, and I know we can't settle this here, but I'll pick my house up in Buras 13 feet, I got a 21-foot levee, I'm still underwater 6 feet. So.
Again, based on the map, the statistics are going to be much more in your favor if you're up 13 feet versus 3 feet. So, but if you have a specific address, and anybody listening, if you have a specific address, I'd love to take a look at it for you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Blank?
Zach, I'm sure you're well aware what's getting ready to happen here. This place is going to look like Beasts of the Southern Wild. I mean, the southern and eastern side of the parish is going to be emptied out. We're going to have a run on real estate. The tax base is going to be severely eroded. You say that again? Anyway, the thing is, I mean, this is federal policy that's been foisted on us.
Yes.
And I don't think people at home realize that. that we were forced into accepting these flood maps. Can was kicked down the road. The thing is, though, now, I mean, we're facing some really daunting task at hand.
Yes.
Some of these people have literally and figuratively been forced to the ends of the earth to live for a lot of different reasons. And there are literacy issues, there are education issues, there are just a whole host of reasons why, people are living where they're living. And it's not like this is Florida. We're not here for the view. We're here because there's a very acute economic need. And I mean, this policy is going to be severely detrimental to Plaquemines Parish. I mean, Kirk, are we still going to have to maintain roads in these places? I mean, I live in Empire. I mean, what like, my house is 4 feet off the ground. I don't have money to go elevate my home. I mean, what's the story? And also, there's tons of unpermitted structures throughout the parish. What's going to happen with those? You're going to have to start bulldozing? There's going to be a bunch of fires here? I mean, what do y'all intend to do? Go knock on people's doors, say, hey, you got to bulldoze your house? Is that going to be a thing here? Are we going to expect that out of the permitting office?
I can tell you that compliance for damages from August 29th, 2021, moving forward, is critical for this parish to remain in the NFIP.
Do you think we're going to lose it realistically, given what you know about people and
lose what?
Are we going to lose the NFIP rating in Plaquemines Parish?
If the parish does not properly and consistently enforce these regulations, absolutely.
Which translates to people being forced out of their homes.
It may, yes.
So we're going to have to force people out of their homes, or the people in Belle Chase and other people that have flood insurance on their properties will lose them.
That's if they start today and put a trailer on the ground, not ones that's there and still could be lived in, right?
I unfortunately didn't quite follow that one, but
My trailer didn't have any damage, so you can't come kick me out. It was permitted.
no, if your trailer has not been damaged, if your house has not been damaged, this is not going to affect you right now. This is when you get triggered with that substantial damage event.
Which could be next year.
Which could be next year, could be in a week. We're still not out of the hurricane season. We know that hurricane season even got an extra 2 weeks this year. So without being a expert in the macro and the microeconomics on this, it's why they are extremely difficult conversations. And
Come to the mic if you have questions.
So
There's public comment. There will be an opportunity.
I mean, what this legislation equates to is it's going to be the emptying of the coastal plain along 3 coasts of the country.
there are severe impacts to many coastal regions, many areas around with riverine flooding throughout the country. Again, the alternative potentially would be to repurchase another house today and in a year or 5 years lose said house again, replace that house at a cost, and then have that get damaged again. And over time, the cost today will be far less than the cost of continually doing this.
Sure, Zach. I mean, it's easy to say. I mean, it's just $75,000 is a lot of money.
Understood.
And the thing is, people here don't really have a lot of money. And I mean, the thing is, this is blindsiding us. There were many times where we asked the former floodplain manager to come here and talk to us, and we couldn't get that. There was some programming that was happening that I kept trying to ask him to participate in, couldn't get that. Sent plenty of emails to Kirk. You remember those emails?
Yes, sir, Richie. And we had town hall meetings down the road in November, okay, in 2020. And no one showed up. Okay, we promoted it. Okay. Okay, well, I apologize. Okay, not a lot of people showed up. This information was put out there. It went in effect January 1st. Okay, and absolutely, look, Richie, maybe we didn't do a good job with the outgoing CBO. Okay, Excuse me? Excuse me? It's public comment when you can talk, so just keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut.
No one speaks until you call upon to speak.
Thank you, security.
Call upon the mic to speak, we will speak.
So that's why we're here today, Richie. That's why we're here today, okay?
I'm feeling over here too for my people. But we must keep order like civilized people. This has been broadcast all over, whether you don't know this or not. Let you call you to the mic. I know we made a long time tonight to talk, but we're not going to get anywhere by this one screaming and that one screaming. Let's come to the mic as the council member calls you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach, sorry for being frustrated here. It's just, the thing is, we're legit being forced off our property. It's just without any kind of help to elevate or, what is some sort of creative way to do this, floating houses, RVs, whatever.
You mentioned help to elevate. We had a call today with FEMA about the hazard mitigation grant program. We do know that there will be hazard mitigation grant money available at some point. We do not know at this point how much money will be available, but we do believe that sometime in the future there will be money for elevating homes in Plaquemines Parish. Now, it's very preliminary. Like I said, we had the first call today, and we will keep you updated as we get information from them. But we do believe that there will be money for elevating homes in Plaquemines Parish.
So we're in a key time right now. People are trying to rebuild after the storm. Things are in disarray. Maybe now's the time to do the task, not, after you're, maybe reestablished on piers instead of going up on stilts. Does that, some of this funding, it seems like it's so early to know, but does this include lifts for people? You get the situation where you start elevating homes, they become sky islands for the elderly. They'll go up in the weekend, they're not coming back down until whenever. Is there other accommodations in there?
I don't have specifics in the plan, Mr. Blink, at this point. Like I said, we had the first call today, and we will follow up and ask all those questions and get those answers for you. I can tell you my mother had her home elevated in Braithwaite, and she lived in it for a couple of months and decided she didn't like being up in the air and moved.
Sure.
And that's, that's the unfortunate reality.
Yeah, these things have to reflect real life. And you need a porch around your house to do maintenance. You have siding without any kind of floor underneath it. You can't pressure wash your house.
Can we just get them to commit to 2 town hall meetings and ask all these questions then?
Yes, we will definitely set that up.
Thank you. Mr. Roussel?
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Zach. It was enlightening and refreshing to see that we have someone here that's knowledgeable and willing to talk.
Thank you.
In the earlier slide that you had in your presentation, there are limited exceptions for trailer parks. Can you elaborate on that?
Essentially, if a trailer park was established before the first firm map was adopted, the first firm map was adopted by Plaquemines Parish on May 1st of 1985. There are certain areas, not in V zones, there are certain abilities for trailers to actually be replaced. Only in an established only in an established park, only in a park that was established prior to May 1st, 1985. These are one of those things of, before you do anything, and to everybody, there's a million different hypotheticals out there. We're tasked with enforcing the rules, making sure that we make that resilient infrastructure and superstructure. And if somebody has a question specifically about those types of exceptions, we're at the ready to help answer that. But I appreciate you paying attention to that, Councilmember Roussel. You saw that in there.
Yes, and the other question I have, we've talked about the other parishes and penalizing for violations. Are we going to be audited for violations anytime soon that would jeopardize the NFIP program in Plaquemines?
I certainly couldn't tell you when the parish would be audited, as that would be through other governmental entities, more at the federal level than anything. But I have not seen the federal government not audit folks. And it'd be great if they were going to audit in 6 months or they'd audit in a year. They started that audit in the Baton Rouge Livingston area from the 2016 rain-caused flood events. They started that in 18 and 19, and you're just seeing kind of the results of that because of, generally how slow things go. I would guarantee, without any other knowledge, I would guarantee that Plaquemines Parish as well as Lafourche, Terrebonne will be audited for how they enforce rules related to Ida stuff. There were rumors floating around at the state and the federal level. I mean, our federal partners in D.C. were already on. It was already on their radar that Plaquemines Parish was illegally giving out permits without doing the proper steps for substantial damage assessments. That was in their brains weeks ago, and we were able to clarify that. And we can stand behind that because we're going to have the records. It's extremely important to have that because, the government will come through. I would bet my career on it.
So,
Mr. Roussel has the.
So when we look at past history here, and in certain instances, people have been granted permission to do certain things knowing that the first floor was not buildable. And there's several instances that were pointed out to me when I came into office in 2015 by one of the outgoing building inspectors. And are those instances possibly going to be looked at?
Again, with the range of hypotheticals, I would tell you that we are going to enforce the rules today. That's what I'm tasked with. I would say that's where it's extremely important. I know it sounds like a punt. We would need that, that property. If you give me a specific example, I could tell you exactly what our opinion would be. But to not try to miss the opportunity, any structure that's been damaged by the event of August 29th, 2021, Ida, is going to be subject to the rules today.
Well, I have a list of the violations that was given to me, but these were prior to Ida, way prior to Ida.
If I could give you a hypothetical, let's say you built legally, completely legally, to be 4 feet above, grade. The BFE 20 years ago was, let's say, 2, and now you've sustained significant damage, and the BFE is now 10. An elevation of the additional 8 feet is absolutely warranted. It has nothing to do with whether you were illegally permitted before or you got through without permits. We're going to look at the damage today. We have to apply the laws today. That's what we are tasked to do. That is an obligation of the parish to do.
Thank you. And one more, Risk 2.0. How is that going to affect the Belle Chase area?
I will actually have to kind of punt with you on that one. We're still working. It went live October 1st of this year, so we're about a month in. It's a very scary concept. The algorithms used to determine exactly how flood insurance is calculated now with Risk 2.0 have not been made publicly available. They're affecting every state along the eastern seaboard, everything along the Gulf Coast, everything along the West Coast. Lots and lots and lots of areas are affected. Personally, I'm not a fan due to kind of the way in which the information isn't been passed on. I don't have the best answer for you, so I don't want to speculate, but it's something that we're looking at every day. There's a group of floodplain managers through the state specifically working to try and get better answers as to Risk Rating 2.0, because Risk Rating 2.0 is going to be a substantial hit to everyone in Southeast Louisiana, actually South Louisiana, come April for existing policies. So we're trying to get our heads wrapped around that right now so we can give you better information. It would on its own be a rough go, and then Ida is obviously a very in-your-face hit.
Thank you.
Ms. Newberry?
Yeah, thank you, Zach. It's nice meeting you. So Belle Chase is a flood X because of the wall, is that correct?
Essentially.
So and we are still continuing to build levees in this parish. below the wall, Jesuit Bend, Port Salva, Beers, Myrtle Grove, so forth. So as we build these levees and maybe even continue with walls further south, will the NFIP maps change? That's a possibility. Will they look at that, or is it a dead set on what they have today?
The maps change from time to time. Generally speaking, they don't change quickly and they don't change often, but they do change. The majority of folks in the country have had maps from the 80s. Many jurisdictions have never gone to new maps. It was a very progressive thing for Louisiana to push through a lot of changes to the maps. Starting in 2016, parishes started to adopt new maps. I would tell you that new infrastructure, specifically related to drainage, pumping stations, things that the administration I know is working on, millages that are that are up for taxes, those things absolutely play into it. New culverts that come in to protect walls, levees, the whole nine, it all goes into those models.
It's up to our government to keep those standards up to present that to the NFIP board.
And yeah, it's kind of an all hands approach. Again, the government's I say the federal partners are going to do their part to fund certain things, and they're going to fund certain things many times if you participate in their programs. It's if you want the allowance money, you have to be home by a certain time. It's a two-way street on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Link.
Sure. What can you tell us about Congress looking at future risk?
Congress looking at future risk. I hate to be glib with it. If I knew what Congress was thinking.
FEMA looking at future risk. So I've seen a report sent to Congress urging FEMA to look at future risk, which is a bit like Minority Report for risk at your house, right? It's not what your current risk is, but under some sort of sea level rise scenario. I've heard talk about that. Do you see that becoming an issue here?
It absolutely is. I believe, with your specific background, you've seen the issues of coastal erosion, and we live with it. We live with it in the entirety of this state, specifically in the southern parishes. It's something that's there. It's a little too hypothetical at this point. There's just 2.0, and I can't really talk much about it and the potential that it gets paused by Congress because of just the absolute furor and backlash between senators from all sides of the aisle, from a lot of different states in geographic areas. But it's something that's kind of in that same category as risk rating 2.0. There's going to be a 3.0, there will be a 4.0, there will be a 5.0. And the failure to properly enforce rules today will make it all for naught. It'll be held over us forever if we don't follow the law today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. LaFrance?
Yes, tonight, could you give us a time when you'll be available for these meetings, meeting on the southern end of the parish?
Set it up.
Y'all gonna set it
Yeah,
up?
we're going to absolutely set it up, work with the administration to make sure that it gets communicated out, and with the, I think Mr. Kognovich and Mr. Blank and you, sir, Mr. LaFrance, represent a lot of folks down the road. So we want to make sure that we coordinate with you on those best times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman?
Can we get the public input?
Okay. When you get a chance, I would like to move to item 11.2.
State your name and address for the record,
Jill
please.
Jensen, 39828 Highway 23, and that's in Boothville. And I want to thank you for the opportunity, for letting me speak. I've got a lot to say, and it's late. I'm going to cut it really short. Welcome, Mr. New Permits Man, and Education Outreach. Who was it that you introduced, Mr. Lapine, for the outreach? Yes. I'm going to ask the council, since there's so much I'd like to say and so much I'm going through, I'm just going to ask you guys, just tell you first of all that I lost everything. I'm 51, and I'm not going to cry because I've done it enough today, and I'm not going to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing it again. I'm starting over at 51. I got nothing. We just heard from President Lupine, who has been very kind, taken all my calls, even made some for me today. FEMA ain't coming. They're not helping people like me down at the lower end of the parish. I got nothing, you know. If it wasn't for, Haba was at my place yesterday with the fire department trying to get a tarp for a place that shouldn't be standing, but I'm going to try and live in it because I can't get a permit, because I can't raise it, because I can't afford it. That is what I'm going to ask you guys, because we've got a problem. I've got a possible solution. I could go off on all day on the fact that people like me, 200 plus, that are trying to rebuild didn't even know about these regulations, or were told 8 different things by the previous permits department, though already I'm seeing I have some hope that things will be different. But we didn't even know. I didn't even know until a week ago, 10 days ago, that I couldn't rebuild. And so that's where some of this information has got to come out. Even though, yes, it passed in January, bad me for not paying attention to an 8-hour council meeting where something may or may not have ever passed and impacted me. I don't know. But this information should have gotten out immediately after Hurricane Ida, because I spent weeks agonizing over what I was going to do, only to find out that I can't do it anyway. So here's what I'm going to ask the council, and it's really important, and I'm hoping you guys can even pass a resolution or something tonight. I'm asking that you guys will, I don't know the right language for it, it's not my shtick, ask the parish officials to go out and ask the state and federal governments for funding to help us do what they're asking us to do. Otherwise, this is going to be a strip of dirt with nothing but a handful of meth heads on it if we don't get help raising our homes. I think it's a great idea. Even though I've never flooded, never will flood, my levees are fantastic, I get it. I wanted to rebuild with a neat, like, stick, brick home, maybe containers. I wasn't going with another trailer. But we can't rebuild this parish in any way, shape, or form without those grants. FEMA's not going to change. The feds aren't going to change. We're going to have to be in compliance, period. Even though there's lots of trailers, there's one across the street from me now getting put in. They don't care. They must know somebody. I don't. If you guys can pass some kind of resolution where you are asking parish authorities to get out there and apply for grants, whatever, you know, that's already been mentioned that there's some discussions about asking FEMA for this money. FEMA is not throwing cash at this situation, I promise you that. So please don't rely on FEMA possibly giving someone like me who needs $80,000 to elevate a home. Give me, you know, if the help from the flood was, or the hurricane is any indication, FEMA's not going to do this for us. But there is money out there. This country's rich. Look at this $1 trillion thing they're trying to pass in Congress right now. If this isn't infrastructure, I don't know what is. The money's out there. So if you guys can pass some kind of resolution to where parish authorities are asked to go and ask the state and ask the federal government to provide mitigation for our, you know, to provide some funding and grants, because I am happy to raise my home. Even though I have no flood, my impacts were not from a flood. My impacts were somebody's poorly built house and porch landed on my house and ruined everything, took everything from me. There's no flood. But if that's what it takes, I can't go anywhere else. I'm a fish biologist for the federal government. I have to live in these seafood communities. Not that there's going to be anyone left to collect seafood if something like this goes through without, is something funny that I missed, or? Oh, I'm just looking through the funnies then. If you guys can just please look into funding, because we can't get around this. There's no going around this. And this young gentleman seems very responsive, very intelligent. I think he's going to be an asset. And our president has been so kind. He's taken every call. He's fought for me every step of the way. We've got great law enforcement who protects us. And I mean, we've got all the pieces and we've got all the parts. We need to figure this out, and we can't save the lower end of the parish, which I know a couple of you care about, without getting some money. So if you can just pass some sort of resolution to get these guys moving forward on seeking grants, I think instead of standing up here and screaming about how ridiculous everything is, I can provide a solution, and that's the only one I have. And we do need the meetings down the road so that people who don't leave their homes have an opportunity to ask questions. And I want to thank my councilman for making this a priority and for taking time out of his day to help me tarp my roof. And for Richie, for everything he did during the storm.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move to 11-2.
We need to finish public comment on this one issue before we move to another topic.
Any other comments?
I'll try and make it sweet and nothing. Kurt, I want to compliment you on your new hire. I got to tell you, I think you're going to do a good job, Zach. Give Benny his answers that he's been asking for some time. Benny, you went through this stuff this last year when we were trying to do the flood elevations and everything for the maps. We went through this in Orleans Parish where the city and all the people in Jefferson Parish and all fought and wouldn't approve the flood elevations till we were renegotiated what was needed for the parish. We went out and did a GIS survey of the entire city by video, its evaluation to the extent of the damages so we can get a handle on what damages we all are facing for this parish. Who, what, where, and how, so you can deal with it. Now, I sat in a meeting just recently and we looked at, there's over a tremendous surplus in the state budget right now. And they're all asking for, what are we going to do with the money? Here's a perfect case of what we do with the money. But it's got to come from you, Kurt, and the council, and people that need the assistance to do the elevation. We watched, when I was on the LLT board, we watched the entire Indian community move from Thibodaux and built a $50 million new city for them. And it's still going on. It's still being managed by the state through GOSEP. OCD has that money available through them. HUD put up money for creating new communities out of Washington. I've dealt with them. There's plenty of money floating around, but you got to ask the right questions. But you got to have the data, the EIS survey of the extended damages by video, by subdivision, and who's been hurt, and you got to have numbers. That's all I wanted to add to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arthur Henry, Bell Chase. Mr. Lapine, man, I got to give you credit. Mr. Zach Smith, man, I've been here for like 50 years. I've been coming to these meetings. That's the first time I've seen something where everything was in order, man. I'm going to give you that credit. And I know this is not a good subject for a lot of people, but it's a very important subject, man. It's for the people. And somebody like you, it's been needed this in this parish for a long, long time, man. You can really help people. You can help people, man. They're going to have some that's going to go against you. But look, I'm for you. I'm for you. If you ever need my help, you got it. You got it. I've been looking for something like this, man. And Kirk, you did a good job on that one, man.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Mr. Chairman, two things. Ms. Jensen, I just want to let you know I do have a conference call with Pat Forbes with mitigation grants on Monday. I will update you after that, okay? And I'll update the council after that. I have that too. But, you know, everyone's praising Mr. Zach Smith. That, you know, Zach's on contract with us, and his contract does end in December. I just want to let you know, but we will try to extend that. I think he's done an excellent job since he's been here. But I just want you guys to know that's part of the process. He's working for us as a contractor, so we would like to extend that. But I just want you to know, if things don't work out, he was here through December.
Thanks.
Rob Forche. I also wanted to congratulate the administration. I don't know where you found this guy, but I can tell you that this guy, in being involved in the hiring of the previous guy, this guy is eons ahead of him. And I appreciate it. But I'm going to say that Bell Chase is not an X, because I live in a home that is in an A. I own a rental house down the street from me that is also an A. And I paid this piece of property off to drop a $4,000 a year flood insurance policy. Okay? So with that being said, I've lived in the same house since 1962. I've watched this house that is right down the street from me, 111 New Street, which is my rental, one of my rental houses. And that home is the one that I paid off, and it is in a $4,000, which has never even gotten a drop of flood. Flood has not even come into the yard of this home, yet it's not an X. It is a $4,000 a year flood policy that I dropped. So just for information, that is right there in off of Barrier Road. It's 111 New Street, and thankfully I was offered. It was mentioned to my wife in the White Auditorium after Katrina, would y'all be susceptible to raising your home? My wife checked the box, yes. 2 years after that, they called me and asked me if I would elevate my home. I am the only elevated home on my street, and I pay $600 a year for that house. But it is also in an A, but because of the elevation, now I'm paying this $600 a year. So there's some education that needs to happen as far as Belchase, because just because we're inside the flood wall and just because we're inside of the 100-year protection levy does not mean that we are in an X. So I'm sure there's a lot more than me. Go to Rose Street, Kurt, your mother and father. You go to every other street, okay? XI, New, Mew. You can go on up the Pie Street. You can go up all of those streets back in there. There are streets that are in an A. So anyway, I'll let it go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And I could say that the property I live on, my family's been on it since the 1700s. Bad thing about it is I'll be the last one.
Right.
So let's move to Mr. LaFrance's item.
Item 11A2, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president, Kirk Lapine, to request a temporary waiver and implementation of the new base flood elevation requirements for the area of Plaquemines Parish dramatically impacted by Hurricane Ida, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember LaFrance.
Please read it out.
You want to just introduce it for the suspension, then she'll read it?
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. LaFrance offers for suspension. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Gouy. Going to vote on the suspension. Suspension passes 7-0. That's back now.
The following resolution was offered by Councilmember LaFrance, who moved its adoption. A resolution authorizing and directing the parish president, Kirk Lapine, to request a temporary waiver and implementation of the new base flood elevation requirements for the area in Plaquemines Parish dramatically impacted by Hurricane Ida and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Whereas the FEMA flood insurance program has requirements for base flood elevations in order to allow participation by Plaquemines Parish property owners, and whereas certain areas of Plaquemines Parish were dramatically impacted by Hurricane Ida, specifically the areas from Ironton to West Point of Lahash, and whereas those property owners already facing dire financial difficulties in returning to their homes are having those financial difficulties exacerbated by the mandate to meet the new higher base flood elevations, and whereas there are efforts underway to seek financial assistance in facilitating those so dramatically impacted by Hurricane Ida to rebuild in accordance with the new higher base flood elevations imposed under the auspices of the federal insurance program, and whereas the residents of the dramatically impacted areas of Plaquemines Parish are being unduly burdened by the impositions of the higher base flood elevations during the period of delay while efforts are financial assistance are being brought to fruition. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Plaquemines Parish Council that it hereby authorizes and directs the parish president, Kirk Lapine, to immediately execute and send a letter to FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell requesting a temporary waiver for property owners from Ironton to West Point, Lahash from the obligation to meet the new base flood elevations until and unless sufficient funding assistance is made available to those property owners. Send a copy of said letter to President Joseph Biden, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas. Send a copy of said letter to Senator Bill Cassidy, Senator John Kennedy, and Representative Troy Carter.
I so offered.
I'll second it.
Mr. LaFrance offers, Ms. Blink seconds. I have one question. Can we take out from between those two spots and put Plaquemines?
Amended.
All right, I'd like to amend it. Just Plaquemines Parish instead of between Arlington and West Point, Lahash.
Got it.
Thank you.
Offer with changes.
I'll second. Mr. LaFrance offered, I second. Is there any questions from the council?
And the administration supports this, and we'll get on it as soon as it's passed.
Thank you. Audience? Machines open. It passes 7-0.
I want to thank the council for the support.
The chairman would like to move to item 11G, District 6 update. Councilmember Newberry. 1, Debbie Mertz regarding Plaquemines Parish Civil Service.
Ms. Newberry?
All right. I'll offer Debbie Mertz. Well, I won't have to offer. Ms. Debbie was asked to put it on the agenda to talk about civil service.
One of our favorite subjects.
Thank you, Ms. Newberry. Hi, my name is Debbie Mertz. I live at 120 Plantation Lane in Jesuit Bend, Louisiana. I have a lot to say, and no disrespect to anybody in this room whatsoever. I was employed with Plaquemines Parish back, I applied back on August 15th, 2019, and then I was hired on September 17th.
He's right there.
Yeah, I'll be giving you a call. Thanks, Ed.
I need another day.
He's got to be behind the desk. Thank you.
I didn't realize. We're just in here. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. It's okay. Back to what I was saying, I was hired on September 17, 2019, and my position was a receptionist / PBX operator in the administration office with President Lapine. Unfortunately, I was affected by the layoff on December 31st, 2020, and since then, I have applied for 13 jobs in this parish. I have applied in November for the charter director position, which at the first time I was denied because I was not qualified, whereas I never changed my resume. I just revamped it, but all of the wording matched tooth and nail, same. I just broke it down so it would have been readily, easily for the civil service director to understand and read it. And then at that point, I asked for a petition to go to the Civil Service Commission to appeal that because I thought I had the qualifications to handle that job. And she denied me that appeal and didn't even go to the commissioners to even offer me to speak in front of them. So on December 9th, I reapplied for that position because no one passed the test and went further for that. So I reapplied for that position. Once again, I was denied, and I failed because of the typing. At the time, the typing skills were 50 to 60 words a minute with 90% accuracy. If you don't use a computer every day, and one of the commissioners stated that in school, they don't teach speed typing anymore, that's obsolete. Everybody uses a tablet, and everybody uses their cell phones. So I asked to speak in front of the commission about that, and it was never relayed to them back in December before I was laid off. I then kept reapplying for positions, sales clerk, EMS clerk, port. I was denied all of those because I couldn't pass the typing. Now, I went to a meeting that was held, and I was told to attend the meeting, but then the director said, "What am I doing here? Because I'm not on the agenda." I said, "I was told to attend this meeting. Isn't it a public meeting?" That's what I thought it was supposed to be, a public meeting for me to speak out. And because I wasn't on the agenda, and I do believe Mr. Epley was in that room, Ms. Taylor was in there, and Mr. Roussel was in that room. They were able to speak out because they were on the agenda. The issue at hand that I was talking about is pretty much the same thing that they were talking about, that they're having communication problems with the director of civil service and not letting people know, or that they're filling out the job applications the wrong way, or trying to make arrangements to work out something to get these positions filled and people hired. And for me to fill out 13 job applications and to be put on not once, twice, a 90-day probation, I think that and I know it's in the civil service book. I'm not sure as the exact article or that it's in there, that it states that. But when you got a parish that is begging for workers, and you got a person that is passionate as me that wants to come back to work, I don't know what else to do. My thing is, I did do some research as to try to get the civil service department removed, just like the port had already addressed that earlier. And Mr. Roussel had already mentioned the same gentleman that I had spoke to. And yes, it's not an easy thing to do. But my question is if this director in civil service, who is she to report to? Is she to report to the council? Is she to report to the parish president? Is she to report to the civil service commissioners? I know that they are volunteered there. They are not paid for their job, so it does make it a little difficult. If you go on the parish website, and if you go under department and you look up under civil service department, you can go up under and you can see all the job listings. But if you go under meetings, there is nothing in there stating when there is a civil service meeting. So I asked, well, when is the next civil service meeting? Well, I got a call today from Mr. Leonard Cable. He couldn't answer that because she doesn't tell them when the next meeting is. I guess it's because they're volunteered. They wait for a lot of stuff to get on the agenda to be brought up. But I've been asking this since November of last year, and I kept getting denied. Or I know when I go on the website to look up for the information when the meeting is, nothing is ever there or posted. So as if it's a community, if it's open for the community, well, you're not informing the community as to when these meetings are occurring. I also know that.
Excuse me, Ms. Mertz.
Yes.
Your
Go ahead.
time's up. If you want to.
Okay. Okay. I'll wrap it up. Let me just ask two more questions. May I do that? Thank you. I know that Archer study was denied, but why can't the commissioners work out with the director and work with your administration as to changing the rules of the qualifications as far as the typing skill, because everything that I failed, it was because of typing. It wasn't because of anything else. It was because of the typing skills. And like I say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so that was one of my concerns. And then, the other one is there's just no communication. There's a lack of communication from her to the commissioners, from the commissioners to you. Does she answer to you? Who hired her? And how did she get that job? And I personally don't think that the job I don't think she's fulfilling her job requirements or her job descriptions or whatever.
I know we have the same problems.
I understand you have the same problem, and I've been trying to deal with this since November, and it still is an evolving thing, and nothing seems to be getting any done with it. And that's why I was here today, and I thank Ms. Newberry for putting me on the agenda, because at some point, something has to give and something has to happen.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes, thank you for your comments. The problem, is real. You heard it earlier from the.
Yes, sir.
However, the approach that is being taken is insurmountable if you're going to try to, for instance, in the port situation, move to the state civil service. You need a constitutional amendment and change the Louisiana Constitution before this parish can move any employees into another system. I have an opinion that that the attorney sent to me a little while ago from the State Civil Service Board saying that it can't be done without a constitutional amendment. And all of this effort that we talk about here is useless. Mr. Garrett gave us this opinion a year ago to get rid of civil service. You have to have a constitutional amendment passed through the state. The solution, I believe, to this problem that affects the port and this government is that the Civil Service Board is responsible for hiring the director. She should answer to that director. And that board needs to be addressed to either resign their members or have us replace those members with somebody who is going to be accountable and who is going to hold the executive director accountable. Now, that's the approach that I believe is the proper approach, not to run from the problem, but to go in and fix the problem.
Correct. And that's why I'm here.
Finish. And I'm going to ask the administration here to reach out to the Civil Service Board and call a meeting, or have them call a meeting, or ask for their resignations if they fail to have the Civil Service Director make public information public, hold public meetings, and handle the parish's business. This is something that needs to be addressed, and, you got to fight it. You got to fight it with fire. You can't dance around the issue and play politics with this issue. And, you might be looked upon as being the bad guy, which I usually get called, but you got to do it. And that's the only way you're going to get results. She answers to the board. The board either do their job or they need to go home.
Does the board answer to you?
No, we appoint the board.
You appoint the board.
However,
Okay.
once we appoint the board, it's out of our purview. The legal department here should do some research and see if we can recall the board or whatever we have to do. I don't have that legal answer. I do know what it takes to get out of the civil service system in this parish, because we've had these problems over the years. And the latest answer that I got is about an hour ago. We can't get out of the civil service system here without a Louisiana constitutional amendment being passed by the entire state of Louisiana. But we can dance around the issue, but the issue needs to be addressed, in my opinion, as to what I'm saying. The board at the local level, the Civil Service Board, needs to be called to task to do something with their director, if that's the problem.
And I sent her a response back, and I asked for my entire employee file, and I paid almost $60 for all the job applications that I've applied for, the letters that I've gotten back, same thing and everything. I didn't mind paying for it, but I've come many times to try to get it, and she said, well, it's been sitting here for months. Well, you don't answer my calls, you don't send me text, send me emails telling me it's ready. I go up to the front office. No one seems to know about it, and it's not there for me. And then I asked her again about when's the next meeting. Well, she don't have any because there's nothing on the agenda. Well, I think that the last meeting they stated that they were going to put me on the agenda to discuss everything. And for her to take the applications for people who are trying to get hired back on and let the commissioners make those decisions whether they want to hire these people or not. And that's not that's not happening. So there is a definite lack of communication here. And I mean, I'm a very passionate person in what I believe in, and I am fighting for this because I believe in this. And I know that I've done, I'm going to speak for myself. I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I thought I've done an extraordinary job in my position where I was at before, and I'm capable of handling any other job in this parish. It's just that I'm not getting the opportunity to because I'm getting denied.
Ms. Newberry?
Yeah, I just had a question really for Danny. I know he's really good with the government and civil service. Is there anything that we can do on our part to pass any kind of resolution or to get some kind of some feedback from the board? I mean, is there anything that we can do as a public board?
I mean, you could always do a resolution requesting that the Civil Service Commission address the issue. Unfortunately, Plaquemines is somewhat unique. Your Civil Service Commission was created under a provision of the Constitution where it was created by an election held pursuant to a petition. There is no mechanism in the state constitution to undo a civil service system created in that manner. Had you created it by ordinance, you could repeal it. Had you created it in the Home Rule Charter, you could have amended the Home Rule Charter. But y'all are somewhat unique in that respect. So you would literally have to amend the Constitution to even let the people of Plaquemines vote on it again. So what y'all are restricted to doing is you appoint the commissioners. Then once the commissioners are appointed, they're not really answerable to you on the decisions they make. And that includes the decisions they make on civil service grievances. That includes the hiring of the civil service staff, including the director. And that includes on establishing the civil service rules. The Civil Service Commission could amend that job qualification. All they'd have to do is put it up and vote on it.
But and that's what I was told by my legal attorney, a civil service attorney that I've been consulting with, and that's exactly what she told me, that they can, if the director of that department took my application and said, well, she's passed everything else and she's applied 13 times and typing is the issue, why doesn't she go to them and let them make that decision? She doesn't bring it to them. So they don't know about it until I brought it up. And I had to call. I did my own. I even passed out, I have papers that I've passed out to each commissioner, and I personally hand delivered it to 2, but the other 3 never got it because she never delivered it to them.
Ms. Newberry?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, Debbie. You know, our hands are tied. Have we had, has the administration had conversation with the director about these positions?
We had multiple conversations. Director Taylor and Director Epley been at multiple meetings with their concerns to the board, which she answers to, which we have no direction to. Okay, we go through this again. We would love to do. We have constant butting heads. Okay, but again, I don't know what way out there is because we technically don't have any jurisdiction in here. Director Taylor, Director Epley, they want to say they've been to multiple meetings with concerns, and maybe they can enlighten us.
And I want to say I admire them for fighting for what they were when I was in that meeting. She nitpicks on leaving something blank. If military services doesn't apply to you, then should I answer that? No. But that she nitpicks on certain things like that. So she'll reject an application because it's not all completed.
Well, Ms. Mertz, thank you so much for coming up here, and we do feel your pain because we can't get positions filled because of her, so.
And it's sad. It's sad because here I am wanting a position back, and I'm not getting anywhere. And then, there's other people that, there's the job descriptions are all almost down to the floor in the office, and you can't get nobody. And I come off of probation on November 2nd, so from my 90 days. So I will reapply I took a test for the accounting clerk, never heard back yet, so this will be almost 2 weeks now. And then I will plan on reapplying for the EMS clerk 3, and if the sales tax clerk 3 is still there, I plan on reapplying for those and see where it goes again. And if I fail one, then I'm going to be back on a 90-day probation again because I can't test for the other one.
Ms. Taylor, you wanted to speak?
Yes, in response to Ms. Newberry. Yes, Mr. Epley and I have on numerous occasions had conversations with the Director of Civil Service. We've been to meetings, we've addressed the board. The last meeting we were at, as Ms. Debbie stated, about the typing, so she addressed that. She did a testing trial with some of the girls from some of the offices, and she has made an adjustment to the typing test.
They don't advertise the meetings. I've never seen it advertised. Are they supposed to legally?
Yes, she sends the advertisement out 24 hours before the meetings.
To where?
She posts them, I know they're posted on the website.
Not under the Civil Service Department.
We receive agendas of those meetings. I can't speak for the council members.
State law says they have to post it on the website and the location. So it would be posted on the door of the location of the meeting like it is here. But civil service doesn't have regularly scheduled meetings like the council does. They wait till issues arise and then have them. But the law basically only says they have 24 hours, they have to post that notice only 24 hours beforehand. Obviously us being in the government, we get emails, but.
And normally when we have an issue, we get together and we send an email requesting a meeting with her and the board, and usually she responds. If she don't respond, we ask again, and she responds.
Thank you, Mr. Roussel.
My final comment is, has anyone made an effort to bring the board members into the parish's legal office individually to have a heart-to-heart conversation with them about the problems that exist?
I can say yes, Mr. Russo, we tried every avenue.
You've called each individual?
We have I have talked to a couple of them personally, okay? Now, again, there's alliance there, okay? There's alliance to their boss.
Let me ask you this. She mentioned the Archer study. How are we paying for the Archer study if it's going on right now? Because our employees are filling out the Archer study right now.
We found some funds in different departments. We were able to fulfill that, and we moving forward with the Archer study.
I know, but we rejected that in the budget, and, that's the problem we got when those things happen.
Because that's part of the problem we're having also, that we're not getting, Zach Smith is a prime example of our CBO. We've been advertising for almost a year for a CBO. And the starting salary is just not comparable to starting salary. So the result of the Archer study will try to help us get up to a starting salary where we can get qualified people.
Well, I understand that, but when we sit here and we vote on a budget and we specifically vote to take something out of that budget, knowing that we didn't want that in there, when your budget comes in and we start taking all your professional services out, because we don't get a notice that you're moving in that direction, you'll understand why.
Well, we have a difference of opinion. We think that the Archer study is necessary. You guys don't think it's necessary, so we're moving forward.
I see that.
Thank
Bring
you.
us the budget.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you, Ms. Mertz.
No, I think that's it. I just hope that something arises from this, something happens, something really needs to happen. And I'll continue to fight on this matter, because I feel passionate about it. And for me, it's not about the money, because I wasn't making a lot of money before. It's the principle of it. It really is the principle of it. Who's lacking on the job? And the answers aren't getting answered. And then, like you say, y'all, everybody knows y'all all butting heads, and nothing's really getting accomplished. It just keeps going and going and going. And then meanwhile, the parish is hurting for employees. And
Thank you.
thank you.
Item 11J, update by plenary on the Bell Chase Bridge. Councilmember Konovich.
I think they left, so. Defer it.
Me too, man. Me too.
Left with him.
Start back on the agenda.
Okay. Item 4A, update by charter directors, old business and new business.
Go next.
Item 5B, bids and 5 bids and advertisements, none. 6, beer and liquor licenses.
You have any queue in?
Okay. Item 7A1, David Morgan Jr., application number 2021-747, dated September 23rd, 2021, install boathouse with 2 slips and repair bulkhead, 113 Sandpiper Lane, Myrtle Grove, Phase 2. Councilmember LaFrance.
So offered.
LaFrance offers, I'll second. Any questions? Machines are open.
Sorry. Thought I hit it.
Passes 7-0. Can you take the next, 3 in Globo?
The next 3, Globo.
3, yeah.
7A2, Enbridge Inc., application number 2021-769, dated October 7th, 2021. Install vaporizer deck and adjoining pipe rack at the existing Venice Gas System Processing Facility, 1565 Tidewater Road, Venice. Councilmember Konovich. 7B, Crescent Excavation LLC, application number 2021-763, dated October 5th, 2021, commercial trailer for storage use only in a floodplain zoning district, 840 West Ravina Road, Belle Chase, Louisiana. Councilmember LaFrance. C, Crescent Excavation LLC, application number 2021-764, dated October 5th, 2021, commercial trailer for storage use only in a floodplain zoning district, 850 West Ravina Road, Belle Chase, Louisiana. Councilmember LaFrance.
So offered.
Mr. LaFrance offers there a second. Second by Dr. Gouy. Any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Blink?
Sure. I mean, this is to put a trailer in a floodplain. They said it's going to be for storage. I mean, it's going to be an office trailer. We're going to allow this or what? I mean, are we going to risk losing NFIP over?
He's got to go up however many feet's on the permit.
We're going to be an industrial zone only? Only allow commercial stuff? What's it really going to be?
Mr. Roussel?
Yeah, he brings up a good point, because over the years, what has happened is that we've given people temporary trailers for 6 months, and they've never removed them to get around the flood elevation. So how is this going to be handled? Is he going to go up in the air, or is he going to get a 6-month temporary tournament and then pull it out, or are we going to play the old game that we've been playing? According to Zach, we can't do it.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to be handled. If you want to defer it and get an opinion from the CBO before we do something with it, the floodplain manager, we can certainly get something from him on what his opinion is of what should be done with this.
I think that would be a good idea, because from what we heard tonight, I thought we were starting a new road.
Mr. LaFrance, you want to defer him?
Defer.
Defer B and C. Go ahead and vote on A.
I mean, on 2. 8-2.
Oh, 2, yes. It passes 6 with 1 abstention.
Item 7D, Shady Oak Trailer, Shady Oaks Trailer and RV Park, Frank Daigle, conditional approval for 1 additional trailer space, Shady Oak Lane, Belle Chase, Louisiana, Councilmember Blank.
I'd like to offer.
You want to offer and same thing here?
Right.
No, he's inside the levee system.
No, he's not.
He's going up 15 feet? Or what's the elevation at Shady Oaks?
So as the floodplain manager just mentioned, he said RVs, recreational nature, it's not a permanent connection. It's different.
Neither was mine.
All right. Well, we'll defer it. We'll get his opinion.
I think it'd be good to have the new individual vet these permits.
Say that again, Mr. Russo?
I believe it would be a good idea to have the new building official vet these permits with an approval or some kind of.
Sure, we'll make sure he reviews these. I will tell you that temporary RVs, as he stated, if it's on wheels and it's something that's moved, I think the rule is once every 180 days. In other words, it's a mobile RV, and if that's what we're talking about in this permit, those are permitted because they are in fact movable. What Mr. Kognovich was talking about earlier was basically an RV, but a permanent residence with hookups and all kind of other stuff. So, but certainly, I would defer to the council, and we'll get Mr. Smith to review these.
And what that brings up is the point of every 6 months, we're going to have to go and make sure that they move them.
Well, if you remember right, Mr. LaFrance was looking at, we were looking at doing an RV park in the floodplain at that time. And so I did a little research on this issue about what's allowed and what's not allowed. But we'll certainly get, and we actually put the brakes on that. We didn't move forward on that because of what happened in Ida, and we're not really sure how, one of the issues that happened in Ida was a lot of the fire hydrants were knocked over. Some of them we think were knocked over due to airboats. Other ones we think could, because of the way they broke, we think they were probably broken by structures. And so we put a hold on that until we can figure out a best way to do that. And certainly now that we have a floodplain manager who can help assist me and advise me on the rules in regards to that, we'll take a more cautious approach on that moving forward.
Thanks.
Item 8, introduction of ordinances and resolutions. We have a few. The first are for Councilmember Kognovich. An ordinance to amend the 2021 operating revenue and expenditure budgets, various funds, various departments, various line items, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2021 general fund operating expenditure budget, flood control general department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance establishing a policy of budgetary control for the operating budget of expenditures for the Plaquemines Parish government for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2022, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2021 5-year capital improvements plan various projects and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance adopting the original capital improvements budget for the Plaquemines Parish government for the 5-year period beginning January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2026, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance adopting the original operating budget of revenues and expenditures for the Plaquemines Parish government for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2022 and ending December 31st, 2022, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, Restore Act Project, Restore Act Bay Adams Project, and Restore Act East Bank Land Bridge Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2021 general fund operating expenditure budget, flood control general department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution to provide employees group insurance coverages consisting of medical, vision, dental, and life for the policy period January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022 on an employer-employee contributory basis of 72%, 28%, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution authorizing and directing the parish president or his designee to do all things necessary and proper to assist the Plaquemines Parish Fair and Orange Festival, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember Bartholomew, a resolution transferring the Plaquemines Port, Harbor, and Terminal District, the operational authority and the financial responsibility of the ferries currently operated by the Plaquemines Parish government, and provide for the grant of use and charge of all property, vessels, equipment of the Plaquemines Parish Ferry Department to the Plaquemines Port, Harbor, and Terminal District, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember Black. An ordinance to amend the 2021 operating revenue budget and to designate all Woodland Conservancy funding, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The next is for Councilmember Arborough. An ordinance to propose and call a special election to amend sections 1.03 and 4.02 of the Charter for Local Self-Government for Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And the last is for Councilmember Blank, an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of the property of Tract S-1-C-2, Julius G. Foster Partition, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on a map of the re-subdivision, Tract S-1-C-2, Julius G. Foster Partition into Tracts S-2-A and S-2-B, S-2-C, and S-2-D. Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana by John E. Banu and Associates, Inc., a low company dated October 22nd, 2020, revised October 25th, 2021. The owner having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the Plaquemines Parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And that is it.
I'd like to withdraw 9A1.
9A2, an ordinance authorizing the placement of 3 stop signs at the corners of Oak Tree Road and Wood Chase Drive, Belchase, to establish penalties for the violation thereof, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Gooey.
I'll offer.
Dr. Gooey offers, Mr. Alborough seconds. Any questions? Machine's open. Passes 7-0.
Nine B, an ordinance to amend the 2021 general fund operating expenditure budget, flood control general department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Blink. Is there any questions? Administration, audience, machine's open.
Wait, I'm sorry. I missed the last meeting. I apologize, Mr. Conover, I didn't hear you. But there was some discussion about this ordinance. The administration would like to see this money maybe used for tractors instead of a pump truck. We've had issues with tractors. We have 8 tractors in the shop now. I know your intention is good about using a pump truck or getting something that we can get reliable. We do have a pump truck that sometimes breaks down. But my biggest concern right now, if you're asking the administration, our druthers would be for tractors. So that's.
Well, I've been asking for culverts cleaned out for 3 years, and the machine's been in the shop for 3 years.
Oh, it probably has, you know. But
I'll probably go back soon because you've been cleaning out all of Arlington and all that.
yes, sir, that has been in Ironton area working. So, but if you. Our druthers would like to see tractors more than a pump truck, so that's what I can tell you. So if there's any.
I'll withdraw it and we'll talk about it some more.
Item 9C, a resolution electing the vice chairperson of the Plaquemines Parish Council for the year 2022. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer ask for a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. Any questions from the council, administration, audience? Machine's open. It passes 6-1.
Item 9D, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, Walker Road Boat Launch Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Roussel, funding source Extension Peters Road Bypass Project.
Mr. Roussel offers a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. LaFrance. Mr. Roussel.
Yes, we had the discussion on this, and Rennie is talking right now, but we looked into this, and there's over $200,000 in this project, and you want to elaborate on where we're at?
Yeah, there's still money in the budget. Where we were with this thing is, I mean, as you all know, this project's been ongoing for 10 years, and I think the contract's been amended like 20 times, but at least with the engineer folks. Basically, we have Go Civic, used to be GCR. Within about 2 or 3 weeks, we should have, this was about a year ago, where I basically wanted to know where we were on this, so I've met with Go Civic, and where we're at is we wanted to get, since the parish has expended so much money in this, and Jefferson Parish and the state, we wanted to get a solid number on these 2 properties we have to acquire. One of them is well within the budget. There's another property. It's basically a crane operator, and I think the original estimates for that were like $1.5 million. Now we're looking at probably $3-4 million. And so our contractor is working on getting that estimate, and we're literally going to, first of all, no matter what happens, we're not going to be able to afford it. But I wanted us to get through that last hurdle, and last time, that's why I asked that Mr. Roussel hold off on this so I can get a little information. So it's my understanding that if Mr. Roussel's ordinance passes today, it's not going to impact what we're trying to accomplish with the project. So hopefully we'll present the total amount to get us through the acquisition process to DOTD in the next couple weeks. And then obviously DOTD is going to have to make a decision about whether or not they're going to fork over the rest of the money to finish these acquisitions so that the project can then move on to construction.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council?
Just as a little add-on to that, the partnership agreement that we have with the state pays 100% of these costs, and they agreed to do that up to a certain amount. Now, with the new amounts coming in, they'll have to be renegotiated or agree to come up with the extra funding. And the comments that I made about the project, Peters Road Bypass Bridge, not being a priority any longer for the state, offended some people. However, the facts are that the state is not really interested in funding Phase 3. So we have to be specific about what we're talking about. Phase 2 is what we're working on now, and that is the part of Jefferson Parish in front of Puller Parts and the part of Plaquemines Parish in the curve on Engineers Road where it goes into Peters Road. That's what we are hoping to get finalized. What I'm referring to when I said that the state is no longer interested in providing funding is for Phase 3, which is the bridge itself, because of the toll revenue that will be diverted to that project once it is completed. And I've been told that by several people, and I gave the name to the individual that was questioning that today, and he can call for himself. And I see Mr. Valley rise, and he was in a meeting where he heard the same thing. So I don't know if you want to comment. But anyway, this has no effect on that. This will build a boat launch.
Gentlemen, I was in that meeting with Mr. Roussel, and specifically we were told that the governor has no interest in doing anything further with the Peters Road extension. And I had concern, as I said to the port there earlier today, that's part of that plan. That money's not going to be utilized until that bridge is paid off. And if anything was going to happen with the revenue coming from that, It looks like it's detrimental to the Baton Rouge project that they want to do a P3 on, as well as the Lake Charles project the governor wants to do a P3. So until such time as the governor's out of office and we have somebody new in administration, we can forget about Peters Road. And as far as this deal for the boat launch, I think there's a certain limitation of monies and time that this Wildlife and Fisheries gave you all to build that. And it's not a big boat launch, it's this little mediocre project. It's too high in engineering fees, but that's a different story. I'll let you all work about that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Machine's open. Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 9E, a resolution electing the chairperson of the Plaquemines Parish Council for the year 2022 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Blank.
Blank, you offer?
Offer is read.
Mr. Blank offers. There a second? Second by Mr. Roussel. Any questions? Machine's open. Passes 6-1.
Congratulations, Mr. Kognovich.
Thank you.
And Mr. Blink.
9F, a resolution establishing the dates, times, and places of public hearings on the proposed 2022 operating budget and on the proposed capital improvements budget covering a period of at least 5 years as submitted by the parish president, to authorize the council secretary to place as necessary public notice in the Plaquemines Gazette pursuant to Section 7.02A and Section 7.05C of the Charter for Local Self-Government, Parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer. Ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Blink. Any questions from the?
We do have a public comment to read.
Yes, ma'am.
This is from Barry Becknow. I would like the parish to post the proposed budget on the website as soon as possible. If it could be done, will you please post it at the same time that it is introduced at the council meeting? In the past, it has been several weeks after the council presentation before it was posted online. The council budget reports have not been updated online since the June 24th meeting. Can you please post them before the meetings and post the ones that are missing?
Thank you. Any other questions?
Rob Forche. Once again, it'll be the same regurgitation as to what I said during the port meeting. Hopefully, we will get a detailed budget that has all of the information on it and not just the high level. Let's be consistent with all of the information that is available to you guys, available to the public, right? Thank you. Are you?
Ms. Newberry?
Yeah, I just want to let the public know I won't be here. I had a prior vacation already set up from 3 months ago, so I just hope the council makes a wise decision on the budget.
Mr. Alborough?
Cam, I just got a quick question. On public comment coming in, is there any vetting to verify if that's a parish resident or not? Do they have to give any additional information?
I'm seeing Danny shake his head back there. He said no, but we do ask that they put their name and address in the subject line. I don't know.
It's not on there.
He's not on there, this one.
You can't limit public comment just to parish residents.
Any other questions? Ms. Newberry? Oh, sorry. Machines are open. Passes 6-1.
Can we set the dates for well, never mind, it won't be since it's for the following year, but it won't be us.
9G, a resolution confirming an election date change pursuant to the executive order of the governor, establishing a new date to canvass the returns of the election, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer. Ask for a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. Any questions? Administration, audience. Machines open. Passes 7-0.
9H, a resolution authorizing the parish president on behalf of Plaquemines Parish Council to certify to the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development that the Plaquemines Parish government has complied with all FHWA DOTD requirements in the 2021 relative to bridges located in Plaquemines Parish under the Plaquemines Parish government's jurisdiction. Councilmember Konovich.
I'll offer, ask for a second. Second by Dr. Gouy. We're not going to get any surprises after we do this time, huh?
No, I was assured that this pertains to bridges on parish highways, not state highways.
All right.
I'm sorry?
Question is the ferry ramps. Remember, we had an inspection done, we approved and certified it, and then they come down and shut the ferry ramps down?
Yes, sir.
So we're alluding to that.
Well, I mean, they do get inspected regularly.
Any other questions? Audience, machines open. Passes 7-0.
Item 10, approval of the minutes from the October 14th, 2021 regular meeting.
I'll offer, ask for a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. Any questions? Machines open.
Councilmembers LaFrance.
Item 11A1,
I'll defer.
That's me.
Is.
Oh, sorry.
Item 11A1, a resolution authorizing and directing Strategic Demographics LLC to establish public input sessions in regards to the redistricting and reapportionment of the Plaquemines Parish Council, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Gouy.
I'll offer, ask for a second.
Second.
Dr. Gouy offers and Mr. Blink seconds. Is there any, Mr. Roussel?
Whoa.
Mr. Gouy?
Thank you. At the last council meeting, we met with, in groups, separate groups, we met with Mr. Danny Garrett regarding the requirements of this government as it pertains to redistricting of the parish into 9 single-member districts with an emphasis on the one-man, one-vote rule. And as we went through that, there were some requirements that were mandated that we have to follow. Following that meeting, I had conversations with Mr. Garrett about trying to increase some of the knowledge that he gave us to the public. And we discussed various ways to do that. And we had to come up with some idea. And this resolution gives, in the gist of the resolution is to have Mr. Garrett moderate 2 town hall meetings, which that was a suggestion that we do in East Bank and the West Bank, and that we utilize the IT services that we have in the parish to broadcast those and have them for view on the website, similar to the way we broadcast our council meetings. Some of the questions that we brought up have not been answered, but what this resolution does, it allows us, or allows Mr. Garrett, through Strategic Demographics LLC, to come up with a plan and bring that plan to us for approval, and in an effort to get more public input in a way that would be beneficial to us seeing or feeling the feeling of the public and the drawing of the specific lines for the 9 single-member districts as based on the census that was taken in 2020. With that, I would like to,
Can we vote on the suspension? And
please do. I'll offer the
Open.
suspension, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
it passes 7-0.
With that, I would like to turn the floor over to Mr. Garrett to fill in the blanks that I left open, and we can open it to the council.
Can Ms. Becknell reread it before Mr. Garrett talks?
Yep.
Item 11A1, a resolution authorizing and directing Strategic Demographics LLC to establish public input sessions in regard to the redistricting and reapportionment of the Plaquemines Parish Council and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Gooey.
I'll ask for a second,
I'll second.
and I'd like to hear from Mr. Garrett.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gouy and I discussed it. We did something similar to this in other jurisdictions in the last cycle. Basically set up a time, and y'all kind of have two sort of ready-made sites. You have council chambers on both sides of the river, one up, one down, and you can have it in the council chamber that you already have the ability then to record it, broadcast it. We have, you have the TVs, you can plug our mapping software in there. So what we can do is we can put the maps up on the TVs for the people. They can look at them, and then I can walk through sort of what the process is. Because some people do have a misunderstanding of what can and can't be done. They think you can just draw the line wherever you want. And I think outlining all of those different criterion will then make it easier for the public to understand when y'all ultimately start voting on a plan, why you made the decisions you made. Dr. Gooey had talked about dates. That's really more up to y'all. We just need to look at it and work availability. The question is, would you want to do them during the day? Would you want to do them in the evening? Would you want to do one or both of them on a Saturday? Either one of those works. We just need to come up with the dates, and y'all give the feedback on when y'all think they would be best done. You're one of those parishes that has historically had your meetings during the day. Your council meetings start at 3. But Dr. Gooey, like I said, we're available to assist y'all in getting this information out.
And what I would suggest is that each of us as council members kind of digest that and get with Mr. Garrett with some suggestions. As he said, it would be after the first of the year. It could be during the day, which may limit participation. It could be in the evening, which may increase participation. It could be on a Saturday, which would increase participation. But I think that he needs to hear from us so he can bring us a plan, and then we could go from there. Mr. Garrett, what is the deadline for us to finalize this?
Y'all have to be finalized by May 8th because your charter, because of provision in the charter.
May 8th. So if we do pick a time, a couple of dates in January, that would give us adequate time if we really make the effort to get those lines drawn. So with that, I'll open it up to the council members for suggestions.
Mr. Roussel?
It's more of a question. So the intent is to come to a public hearing or meeting, so to speak, and put the proposed plan up on the screen for comments?
Well, that's one way to do it, is you could actually put the proposed plans up there. If you didn't have proposed plans at that point, you could start with the existing plan and the malapportionment that we discussed, and kind of show which ones are too large, which ones have too much population, which have too little population, and sort of explain what would have to happen to each. Those are options that are available to y'all.
Well, my comment would be the suggestion to give the proposed agreed by the majority of people who are here now, so that we don't come and reinvent a wheel with, instead of 9 spokes, that we have 50 spokes. And that way we don't give public expectations of something that's not going to happen, that can't happen. So if we all kind of agree on what the boundaries are and the lines are, and we put that up there, And if it gets tweaked, it gets tweaked, but it doesn't get recreated.
And that's one way is you could have sort of a working draft, so to speak, after, meeting with all of the members and come up with a working draft or two, and then make those part of of what gets presented to the public. That allows y'all then to get feedback from the public on what they think about those preliminary. I mean, none of those plans would have been adopted yet, but it would give you some feedback. There's actually one jurisdiction in the state, they actually have a provision that requires they do that. They have a date where they have to introduce plans and then publish them in the paper before they can vote on them. That doesn't necessarily apply to y'all, but that would be another way to do it, is because we have plenty of time, I think, between now and January to come up with one or two or three working drafts that are sort of different ways for the puzzle to fit together. And that way y'all can get feedback from the public on which of those they think makes the most sense.
Thank you. Mr. Russo,
You done, Benny?
I'm done.
Yeah. And to expand on what Benny said, that's exactly what the direction I think we should take is to go through the criteria. There are certain criteria we have to meet, and there are constants that we really can't change in a general sense. And then to put what we feel is our, from the knowledge that we've gained, what we feel would be the lines for the district, and give a starting point or two starting points, and not a blank slate. We need to take the initiative to say, this is what we've looked at, these are the census blocks, these are the numbers, and Mr. Garrett would go through all of that, and then try to get the input that we need to maybe tweak it, as Benny said, because it's a very important decision, and it's important that we let the public know why we have to do it, how we have to do it, and the reasons why we're doing it. I'll yield.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Stuart, I think your idea is perfect. The public is more concerned about this probably than you all are, what's going on up there. They don't know what's happening. The more, and Danny, you and I have had conversations about this in the past, there's certain restrictions that you all are under now, I believe by court order, as to what has to happen in some districts. And that has to be laid out to the public, why you're doing what you're doing, as you said already, Stuart. But I think if you take a timeline, you put together, let Danny put his plan together or some versions of it to you all, put it on the internet, put it in the Gazette, let everybody write in a comment if they have some suggestions to you carefully so that you all can collect all this stuff in a reasonable time, then have your town hall meetings. A lot of people don't like to come up and speak. They'd rather write into you and tell you what they like. But for all practical purposes, we've already started seeing the numbers and the populations being put on Facebook now as to what districts are there and how the population has been in the past to now. So it's not any big secrets as to what's been going on in the parish. So I don't think you're going to see any surprises out here, but give the public ample time to comment, though.
That's the point, and I think having the meetings broadcast and on the internet, or have them visit the meetings personally, is where they would gain some concept of what we have in the
Absolutely.
Then we would have a comment period after that.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, we have to just bite the bullet and say, this is it. So getting that public input, I think, would just make us a little smaller.
You know, I've been through some redistricting with the state and the legislature and stuff like that with Danny and stuff up there. It's not any magic that what goes on here. He just needs to outline to you and to the public what the rules are. Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Kim Turlidge Vaughan, Clerk of Court. I was just curious, are y'all also going to be considering the constables and the justice of the peace in the redistricting?
I can address that. They don't have the authority to do that. The legislature has to draw the constable and justice peace districts.
And then they come to the...
No, then it's considered part of the judiciary, and so it's actually done by the legislature.
Because I was given information from Senator Hewitt that that it would take place, that the best time for it to take place is once the census was completed. But that it would have to be the council to determine if they would change those wards. That's the information that I was given.
Well, when you're talking, and I guess precincts are drawn by the council, parish council, but the actual boundaries and the number of
Wards.
constable and JP districts are established by the legislature. There was even some talk, I know, because y'all have the one that nobody lives in. There's literally not a registered voter in the entire district,
on that too,
and it will continue to be vacant until such time as the legislature coalesces it. Now, the legislature normally is not going to jump off and do that on their own. They normally will wait for a request through a local bill request from a particular parish to go fix or alter those JP and constable districts, as a practical matter in my experience.
Okay, so each time, I know you all are getting the notice about us having a special election to elect someone in a district, in the district that has no registered voter. So where would you suggest I go from here to try, go back to the senator and try, or contact our representative to see?
I think a local bill addressing because it looks like, and it's not so much drawing the lines as is you just have one too many constable and JP districts, frankly.
We do, but we would like them to align with, I would like them to align. I would think that the comments I've received in the past from some of the council would to have them align with the school board and the council seats as well.
So take them from 10 to 9 and have them aligned.
And have them aligned, because that would, I think my predecessor had tried that for years before I took office, and that was something that I addressed when I first got into office, and I met with our representative at the time from from 105 and from, Garfara, and also asked Miss Senator Hewitt to meet with us, and she sort of encouraged me to get my council behind that it was something that we would have to do.
Well, and I think you could utilize whatever plan was adopted by the council and then essentially use that geography as what the legislature would use for the bill.
Okay, and one other question, since I don't recall it was earlier this year that I think the registrar gave the information to Mr. Bartholomew about eliminating that position. Does anyone know where that is at this point? I think y'all introduced a resolution to have, I think at that time, y'all had mentioned for it to be Mac, but it was actually should have been Ray Garfara to do that. So I don't know where that is. Does anyone?
I don't remember us addressing that because it's been an issue for many, many years.
No, it was something that came up at a council meeting down in Point LaHash, and Mr. Bartholomew introduced it.
Do y'all mind me piping in, or does anybody
go right
remember
ahead.
that? Danny, I believe that's what you drafted, we adopted it and that was it?
And again, the next step, it would have to go to the representative, because generally the local bill process at the legislature is part of the process is they require a resolution from the governmental entity essentially of the jurisdiction impacted. They don't just run off on they can just run off on it, but it's over the last 8 to 10 years, they've leaned into that because there is a process, and they generally make that governmental body pay the advertising costs for the local bill advertisement and so forth, because it does have to come back, get advertised before it can be addressed as a local bill.
So what's our next step with the resolution that's just sitting?
But given that the legislature is going to be doing redistricting anyway in the coming year, and they're most likely, this will be an opportunity where they may be changing multiple JP and constable districts around the state, that local bill resolution could kind of go toward that and lean into it and just advocate that they adopt the number and jurisdictional lines for the JP and constable districts that are aligned with what the council adopts. And like I said, the council has a deadline of May, so it's before the legislative session is over, and now anticipate that they would maybe get their plan adopted. Don't want to wait till the last second to get it adopted. But if that plan were to get adopted, say in February or March, it would be fairly easy to provide that information to the legislature. Just as a backup, it may be still move forward with asking one of the legislators in your delegation to introduce a plan to introduce a local bill he can introduce a limitless number of local bills. There's a small advertising requirement, but it's not a huge amount, just as a backup to where if there's not a general bill for JP and Constable districts. But it does seem to something that makes sense because it is kind of pointless to have to keep calling special elections to fill a vacancy and literally no one is eligible to qualify.
Correct. And so, just so I'm sure, just so I'm understanding this, the resolution that is just sitting. Do I need to, how do I need to get that?
Let's find out what's sitting first.
I went onto Laserfish and double checked. It was actually adopted on October 22nd of 2020. A certified copy along with a letter from my office was sent to Representative Cormier on October 26th.
And what does it say?
Dear Representative Cormier, enclosed, please find a certified copy of Plaquemines Parish Resolution Number 20-270 adopted at the October 22nd, 2020 council meeting. Please do not hesitate if you have any questions regarding this matter.
I know,
Barbara
what is the
Marcotte.
resolution? Does it ask?
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
reapportion the districts or eliminate?
To
go to
eliminate
nine?
Ward 4.
Yeah, it was to eliminate that ward.
Is Ostricka in Ward 4? Because they have one person lives there.
It's Pollitt-Town.
According to the census, one person lives on the East Bank.
But they must not be registered to vote, and you have to be a registered voter to run.
Yeah, that's got to be what it is, because we have no registered. I mean, I've checked it numerous times. Well, I mean, the state does as well, because I know they send that to the council or the administration. I think it's the council that they send that letter each time saying that we need to hold a special election for that. But I also was concerned with that at that time, because I don't think it needs to go through Representative Cormier. I think it needs to go through Representative Ray Garofaro, because that's his district. Am I correct on that, Benny?
Yeah, but I think it affects the whole parish. So
It does. So it can go to either one?
Either one of them could do it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, I want to make sure that the resolution that we have on the books is going to be the vehicle that we need to get the legislature to reapportion or eliminate from the 10-ward system to the 9 single-member districts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Danny, you drafted that?
All right. Yeah, it essentially provided to a local bill that would essentially merge it into one of the other districts.
That's a different situation, you see?
Yeah, it is. I know, but I didn't know if both could be handled at the same time, since you all were trying to move forward with the redistricting.
Dr. Gouy?
If I could, we talk about the one man, one vote. It doesn't exist with the system we have now with the constable ward. So, Danny, and I really do feel that the local governing authority needs to make the first move and make that request. So, Mr. Garrett, if you could get some legislation ready to put on the table where we could, as the 9 of us, could decide if that's the direction we would want to take early, I think that would start the process.
Okay.
Because we all know that it's the amount of workload is not equal because of the population in the different wards. And
Correct, and I don't pretend to know how the pay scale is determined. That's something that comes from you all as well, but I don't know if that has something to do with the size of what they're representing. But I mean, that's always an issue there too. You would be eliminating a vacancy, a salary. I know it's not being utilized because it's vacant, but you also.
it would happen because of if we do this. So if we could just get the legislation ready, Mr. Garrett, I'd be willing to.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind you all that that was something that we've been talking about over the past 5-6 years, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose sight of it at the time that we're trying to do this other stuff.
And to follow up on that, I think what Dr. Gouy is saying, the proportionate population, we have maybe 3 or 4 on the East Bank and 2 or 3 on the West Bank.
Correct.
So if we go and we change it to mirror the council and the school board districts, we'll be going from the 10 ward to the 9 single-member districts, and it'll be more representative of the
Absolutely.
population. So that's what we're going for, I would imagine.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Any other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Henry.
Yeah, I just want to say, Dr. Gouy, thank you for having public input in this, and it's very important, and it affects people like me. So, thank you. You're a man to your word, too.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Machines open. Passes 6-0. Let the record show Mr. Blink left.
Item 11B, District 9 update, Councilmember Konovich.
Can I just do 3 boat harbors?
Okay. Item 3, boat harbors.
Mr. Helmers, do you have a list of boats that need to be picked up from the hurricane, and are we doing anything to try to help them?
Yes, we do have a list of boats that are sunk, and right now they being assessed whether they're repairable or non-repairable. They'll be picked up at a later date. Right now, we just did the RFP for the assessment team to come in, but there's multiple in every harbor right now. But we do have a plan working to put everything together back into the harbors that, was damaged by the storm.
Thank you. I'll defer the rest.
Item 11C, deferred. 11D, deferred. Item 11E, District 7 update, Councilmember LaFrance, discussion on the most severely affected areas from Hurricane Ida in District 7.
Yes, I just need to get some help in getting the ditches swept in West Point Lahash. Y'all help me with that. And I get some of the ditches swept in the West Point Lahash area around the Landrys, the Sills.
They're all working on that. They were out there, had a machine out there the last 2 days, and also picking up a bunch of the debris on both lanes and the highway.
All right.
Item 11F, District 5 update, Councilmember Roussel, deferred. Item 11H, status of the Ladder and Bloom contract and the marketing of parish property, Councilmember Roussel.
We've had several other priorities, haven't gotten around to that yet, sir.
I would ask that you just pick up the phone for 5 minutes and talk to the agent that we are paying.
You might.
Take 5 minutes out of your schedule, call the agent that we have on contract and ask him to put the sign up.
I'll do
Since
that.
He's marketing the property, and if I had the authority, I'd call and tell him myself.
I'll do it.
Item 11I is deferred. 11J deferred. 11K, presentation of the proposed 2022 budget by the Finance Department, Councilmember Konovich.
Just going to hand out. Anybody want to?
Mr. Chairman and council members, the administration is pleased to present the parish council the 2022 proposed operating budget and the 5-year capital budget. As you review this budget during the next few weeks, please contact my office or the finance office with any questions or suggestions. This will facilitate efficient and effective budget hearings. We look forward to working with the parish council to review this proposed budget for adoption prior to the start of the 2022 fiscal year.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. LaFrance, second by Mr. Alborough. Machine's open. It passes 6-0. Let the record show meeting's adjourned at 9:22.